All right, people. We've had a bit of a false start here, but pardon us as we get it together. This is TV Party Tonight. I am your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. This is one of those shows where just nothing has gone right. But we're going to try to muddle through this. We are going to attempt, I'm going to go with attempt here, attempt to review Marvel and Netflix's Iron Fist. I am, of course, joined by my partner in crime on Damn You Hollywood and the host of the 411 Ground and Pound MMA show in his own right, Mr. Robert WInfree. Tommy, can you hear me?
I think we should just change our name from the Radulich and Broadcasting Network to Damn You Blog Talk.
Yeah. Quick, we attempted to do this on Blog Talk Radio tonight, but Blog Talk occasionally, and look, I'm not going to slam Blog Talk too hard. I mean, generally speaking, all right. Generally speaking, we put out 5 or 6 shows per week live. Maybe 1 or 2 of them are canned and uploaded after the fact, and we generally don't have a problem. Some of the issues were related to more hardware than software. But this does happen occasionally. I think the worst part about it for me is when it does happen and I'm paying for the online help and then the online help isn't available. That's a little frustrating. But it is now 9:24. We are 24 minutes late to what was supposed to be our TV Party Tonight review of Iron Fist. And we even attempted to do this once on Google Hangout, YouTube Hangout, whatever they're calling this these days. However,
is there some reason your post on Twitter about this is in Portuguese?
It's entirely possible.
I'm staring at it right now. I'm just wondering if there's a specific reason for it.
I don't know. Did I actually put up something in Portuguese?
Your Twitter, well, like the automatic, whatever because I imagine you have all these things linked together.
Mm-hmm.
And when you told it to promote, the one that came out in Twitter is actually in Portuguese.
Okay, I don't know how that happened, but so the other thing about this is that I actually have a link up to the show that we couldn't even get off the ground. So I have a failed link on Facebook to the show that I'm now trying to fix. But before I do that, let me go ahead and actually bring up you don't have to look at Peter Griffin all night. Let me go ahead and share my little picture here that I got going up. Hang on. Easy breezy. Here we go. Whee! There we go. There's the Iron Fist. Hello, Danny Rand.
Hi, Mark. Can you explain to people that I've always been white?
Oh, we'll get to you, sir. We'll get there. All right. So we should all be looking at a picture of the Iron Fist logo as brought to you by Netflix and a fancy pants drawn picture of ye old Danny Rand. Am I right? Am I right, people?
As far as I can tell, you're right in that particular respect, yes.
All righty. Let's get on with this shindig. All right. Well, I repost the stupid link on Facebook in case anyone cares to watch this disaster. Robert, let's start this way. We've had Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Daredevil seasons 1 and 2. How would you, on average, grade the Marvel Netflix presentation going into Iron Fist?
Coming into this one, average of B plus. They have a very strong track record. I mean, again, the first season of Daredevil stumbles a bit at the finish line, but has serious high points. And really gets a lot of credit for kind of reminding people that, hey, Marvel and Disney can do stuff other than brightly colored kid crap.
Okay.
So again, it gets some credit for that. And then, we went into Jessica Jones, which was feel free to listen to all of our individual reviews for these, by the way. So I don't want to repeat myself too much. Which was very well written, very well executed, a very localized, very tight character piece. You had season 2 of Daredevil, which had some, again, kind of the same thing as the first season. There are extreme highs. Again, the first 4 episodes, I think, are about as perfect, a 4 hours of television as you'll find. And then you have the inability to appropriately marry the realism with the mysticism, and the fact that no one in the writer's room seemed to want to do anything with Elektra other than crazy ex-girlfriend from college that you haven't quite gotten over. And again, it created highs and lows. Luke Cage, generally excellent. Again, played a bit too much into convention, too much concert material for my taste. But on the whole, again, a very well executed television show. I already listed my complaints about Luke Cage, and I don't want Mark to yell at me again for not saying that it's perfect, so we'll leave it at that.
I'm not gonna. I'm too exhausted from this entire experience to yell at you right now.
I hope that holds.
We'll see. We'll see how this show goes. But yelling at you about Luke Cage, I'm past it. I'm over it already.
Anyway, again, Luke Cage was generally excellent. And so none of them have been perfect. There was not a perfect one, but they've all succeeded far more than they failed. And so again, I had some relatively high hopes coming into this. They have, again, an exemplary track record up to this point.
All right. I'll tell you my thoughts. I've liked Jessica Jones, and the reason why we're starting this way is that it'll sort of inform where at least I'm coming from when I give my thoughts on Iron Fist as a whole. Going into this, the 2 ones I liked the best out of the 4 we've seen previously were, as WInfree mentioned before, was Luke Cage at the tippy top, and without doing shtick. I mean, as we all know, I'm a huge fan of The Wire, huge fan of urban type television, and there was that sense. And while I don't necessarily buy into a lot of the hyperbole around Luke Cage, which was he is the postmodern black superhero in a world where cops shoot blacks on an ongoing basis, there is something to they did sort of portray him as sort of an urban folk hero. And I am, and while I've always been a fan of the character going back to the 70s, I do enjoy the idea of the bulletproof black man. But overall, I enjoyed the show because, like WInfree, who thought there was way too much music, I enjoyed every bit of the music that was presented, and I liked the fact that they did a concert basically in every episode. I think I described the music as its own character in the narrative. And the acting was good, and I enjoyed the villains, and I really didn't have a whole lot of criticism for Luke Cage. And I loved Jessica Jones for all the reasons that there were many men out there who hated Jessica Jones. I enjoyed the fact that it really put women's issues at the forefront of the narrative. It felt like it came from women for women, but it told a story that really anyone with an open mind could enjoy. It's not that I didn't like the Daredevils, especially season 1. I enjoyed Daredevil season 1 a lot. Daredevil season 2 was very uneven for me, but I think if I had to just sort of sum up what is my issue with Daredevil overall, I'm just not into kung fu fighting. Just not. After a while, it gets a bit samey for me. There are people like a good friend of the show, Andrew Graham, who he likes that sort of thing. Robert obviously likes that sort of thing. We're all fans of like MMA and fighting styles, and to a degree, these are things that I enjoy. But in a fictional narrative, I can only take so much of that before I start to lose my patience. And with Daredevil, when the narrative wasn't strong enough to keep me interested, and there was just a lot of fighting going on. After a while, the fighting just became too redundant for me. There wasn't enough. I mean, like, who doesn't like the hallway fight in season 1, right? Right. But especially with season 2, it's so uneven. And after the arc with the Punisher, and before he gets captured, and they shift into more of his trial, the original, Punisher running wild arc in the first 3 episodes of Daredevil was about the only thing that interested me. The stuff with Elektra and the hand, and then his stupid trial, and then Matt's life falling apart. A lot of it just didn't hold my interest. I thought season 1 was much stronger. That being said, so going into Iron Fist, I was excited because I think overall the quality is still some of the best TV going right now. So I was excited for that. But, given a choice between Luke Cage and Iron Fist, I just gonna more favor Luke Cage. I just like that character more. They literally would have had to screw things up for me to not like that show. But I have to say, overall, as a presentation, as a television presentation, I really thought they did a great job with Iron Fist. I say I thought they did a better job with Iron Fist than they did with Daredevil season 2. And we'll talk about why I feel that way. But they did what I needed them to do, which is the fighting served its purpose where they had it. And even at times, though, when we get to the drunken boxing episode, ooh boy, I have a lot to say about that. But I mean, overall, they didn't just rely on fighting scenes on top of fighting scenes on top of fighting scenes. They told a windy, twisty, turny story that really had me hooked through most of the season. And at the end, I couldn't stop watching it. I wanted to see how it was going to end. And we can talk about some of the hits and misses, and as far as how they wrap things up. Especially the last episode where they seemed to start a new storyline and end it just as quickly for some odd reason. But like I said, overall, I really thought they did an excellent job with this. And it's a shame that the whole thing has been marred by stupid controversies like we were joking around before, with the whitewashing and the cultural appropriation and everything. And we might get to that towards the end. But as much as I've joked about it on other shows, I actually don't want to spend a tremendous amount of time bellyaching about it. We will pull a damn you, Hollywood, and read a little bit of the Rotten Tomatoes reviews just because these people need to be slapped upside the head with a penis. But and really, what's a podcast with me and WInfree without ripping apart the critics that get their stuff reprinted on Rotten Tomatoes? So with that said, you want to give an overall arc to how the season begins, ends, and everything in between?
Yeah, let me have a go at this. I will say,
hang on, do you want to break this down episode by episode, or do you want to give?
No, I don't think that's necessary.
Okay.
I mean, look, I'll do a kind of overarching plot, and then anything that gets left out or we want to talk about specifically that pertains to specific episodes or whatnot, we can, easily do that.
Sounds like a plan.
I will just say that I hate not being surprised by both shows like this and a lot of the stuff in general. It was one of my gripes with Luke Cage. After a certain point, I knew exactly what was coming. And I had the same thing here. And so I'm doing my best I'm going to do my best when I talk about this to not allow the fact that, again, I see it, I know it's coming, to really kind of color too much of my analysis. All right. As for plot synopsis, we are following Danny Rand, son of one half of a slightly more than one half, technically, of a corporation that his parents put together with one of their friends. The corporation is Rand Enterprises. The other entity that we're going to be concerned about for the purposes of that discussion are the Meachams, longtime friends of the Rand family. We open with Danny coming back from 15 years that was spent in a monastery in an extra-dimensional location called Kunlun. Okay, if that didn't lose anybody. Again, Danny Rand, his parents and he were involved in a plane crash in the Himalayas. His parents were dead basically on impact. Danny was discovered by monks, again, from Kunlun, who took him in. They trained him in the ways of Kung Fu. And 15 years later, when he was finally able to return to the real world, well, not real, our world, slightly different than just real. Kunlun is very real. He does so. He wants to meet with his old friends and maybe get back into the family business. And, a lot changes in 15 years. Now his childhood friends are in charge of Rand, and, well, they're less than ideal people. His father's business partner, Harold, who he was kind of hoping to reconnect with and, get information from, has theoretically died of cancer. I say theoretically because the Hand, the mystical ninjas, brought him back with like they can do. And he's now hiding out in a penthouse because everyone thinks he's dead. In fact, he actually did die. And now they're just, again, that is his existence for a period of time while he pays off his debt to the Hand for, sparing him the torment of the afterlife, I guess. I don't know. The first several episodes are Danny just trying to reacclimate, Danny attempting to claim his rightful percentage of Rand Enterprises, which is the magical number of 51, because then no one and no combination of other people can ever have more than you. Actually, 50.1 is really all you need. But again, so there's a brief corporate arc. We find out that, again, Harold Meacham is still alive, and his accomplice is his son, Ward, who's a drug addict because, well, if your character's flat and you need a hook, drug addict. Seriously, that was about all I felt about his descent into heroin use. You have his sister, Joy, who is not aware that their father is still alive. Again, there's a few corporate struggles. There's Danny's social isolation and idealism that kind of comes into conflict with corporate life, like it does. He also comes across a young woman by the name of Colleen Wing when he is kind of bouncing around New York in the beginning and is homeless and without shoes. Because he's a monk, you see. They don't need shoes. Or money. She runs a dojo in... I forget exactly where they are. I don't think it's quite as cliche as Chinatown. They're in and around Manhattan. Those two strike up a friendship based around martial arts that turns romantic as the season progresses. We come to find out that Danny is the Iron Fist. There is only one, you see, like the Highlander. An arc that will actually play out as the series goes on. And Danny, it can focus his chi into his hand, and it becomes an indestructible force that can punch through just about anything. It can block bullets and metal and cave-in steel and all that good stuff. And as the Iron Fist, the defender of Kunlun, he is the sworn enemy of the Hand, who we've been introduced to courtesy of Daredevil primarily, as a group of, again, evil ninjas with mystic plots and schemes and, whatever else evil mystic ninjas do. And again, the Hand is also responsible for having brought back Harold Meacham, and Harold doesn't like owing them. He is afraid of them, understandably. Again, evil ninjas with magic powers, scary stuff. So he sees an opportunity to use Danny to get him out from under their thumb, to rid him of that particular problem. There's a series of confrontations. Madame Gao is reintroduced because, well, she's awesome. However, it comes out eventually after, again, a few of these confrontations, and Danny's struggling with corporate life, and the corporation not liking Danny, and, well, we got to oust him. We need to remove his power, and all those Meacham twins. They're not actually twins, but they're no good. We don't want them around either. Danny winds up severely injured and is taken in by Colleen's sensei, and at this point we learn, no, Colleen was actually one of the hand, because there are different fingers on the hand, and they are at war with each other over control, because apparently the thumb has not yet shown up and gone, without me, none of you actually work right, so shut up and get in line.
Waka waka.
Yeah, I got anatomy jokes, guys. I'm sorry, you're just going to have to deal with it. Danny is deeply aggravated and torn about this because he and Colleen have become close, but he has sworn to destroy the hand. His old friend from Kunlun shows up right about now with all of the clinginess of your average, emotionally unstable girlfriend. Why did you leave us?
It's a little unfair.
Only slightly. I mean, if you couple the clinginess of the girlfriend with the angst of, it was supposed to be me, I think you've got Davos.
Why did you say that name? Why did you say sorry, that's a different thing.
I'm Gary Oak, damn it. I'm supposed to be the champion.
Martha. Go on.
Yeah, you go to, I can't believe I just used a Pokemon reference here, but I did.
Yeah, I was not, I did not ever get into Pokemon. You're a little,
I just know, I know enough, and I know, again, Gary Oak, want to be the champion, and never quite get there because Red is the one who's never actually beaten. Again, it's a whole other thing.
We're off track here. So let me just say
anyway,
this. He's a little bit more motivated by why did you leave me? You broke my heart and you left me, and now I'll never dance with another. It was more along the lines of, hey, you
have a job, douchebag.
You left your guard post. You've left us vulnerable to attack. There's a reason why we stick the Iron Fist out there. And oh, by the way, if you didn't want the job in the first place, fucktard, you shouldn't have taken the power from the dragon. That's what I wanted. You got in on my racket, and then you left like a thief in the night. Half of that's actually what he said. And he's got a good point.
He is not without a relevant point. That's true. Anyway, again, there's warring factions within the hand. Madame Gao's in charge of one of them. There's a subplot with her having developed a synthetic heroin that is perfectly legal in many ways, which begs the question of why they were complaining about distribution, because, never mind. There's some inconsistencies within the narrative as far as that goes. That's all I'll leave that there. Anyway, she wants to sell heroin and get rich and things of that nature, and you've got Colleen Sensei Bakudo, who is part of the hand subgroup that is trying to tap into the demon world and bring forth some unspeakable evil, and these are the ones that we've kind of seen through Daredevil. They're the ones who will hook people up to big pots and drain them of their blood and essence and utilize that to create said demon. It's all very not explained. I don't imagine they really understood when they were writing this what exactly the end game was here, because that's what it feels like.
Part of it is he's and this is very much like a postmodern, post-Trump sort of plot line where, don't you understand corporations run the world, and we of the martial arts people need to bring it down, and you will lead us because you are the Iron Fist. You are the most powerful martial arts weapon, the living weapon, if you will. And so we will use you to take down the post-Trump world. And Danny Rand says, but I just want to have a good time, and I don't want to do things like that.
No, his response is, I hate the hand, and if your response is we must burn the world to save it, I think you have a problem, which is reasonable.
Right.
Couple of big fight scenes, including Colleen killing Bakudo, but he's going to come back in the next for the Defenders, I'm almost positive. Because they don't.
Whether he comes back in the Defenders or not, he is not dead. We'll get there, but they very much established the fact that they thought they had killed him. They very reasonably did enough damage to kill him. And he's not there anyway.
Yeah, again, his body was taken away. He's not dead. He'll show up for the Defenders, most likely.
I'm not dead yet. I want to go for a walk.
Yeah, don't you understand? The Black Hand always triumphs. Have at you.
It's just a flesh wound.
Yeah. You got no arms left. Anyway,
right,
again, the other major plot kind of going along with this is, again, Harold Meacham, played by David Wenham, who is one of the highlights of this in many ways. Again, he wants out from under the finger of the hand. See, anatomy jokes.
Boo!
Out from under the thumb of their thumb, so to speak.
Oh God! When did you turn into me? And I've always been terrible, so stop it.
He wants to be out of their grip. He's not happy with the hand puppeteering his company.
Oh my God! Stop it!
I might have a few more. Anyway.
Stop it, Shecky.
Anyway, he schemes. He is able to get out from under their control and influence, and then reveals that, oh no, I'm also the one who caused the plane of the Rand family to crash. Because it was him all along, Danny, the author of all your pain. I mean, it actually
we haven't busted that one out in a while.
It felt appropriate.
Everyone take a drink.
That said, it does make it actually makes a degree of sense in this case because he's in.
Oh no, it absolutely does. The all your pain, Danny Rand. Okay, he actually was though.
No, again, yeah, it makes sense. And so he and Danny have a climactic battle that winds up with Ward, who really hates his father for many reasonable reasons. Again, if that was my dad, I might have shot him a lot sooner than Ward did.
Oh no.
Empties a clip into him, kicks him off a building. However, I wouldn't be surprised if he came back again, because in order to kill someone who's had the gift of immortality bestowed upon them by the hand, you must actually decapitate them. I mean, decapitation fixes most problems. Oh yeah, no, you're right. They cremate his body. My apologies, I forgot about that scene.
So unless he's fucking Deadpool, he ain't coming back.
I wish Deadpool wouldn't come back either.
Well, let's not get into that. But as we all know, this is the Marvel Universe, and the one law of the Marvel Universe is the only character that can always remain dead is Uncle Ben. Hi, Ben Cologne.
It is. It's only Uncle Ben. Everyone else can come back. And has at various points.
Yes. Everybody must come back. All right.
Anyway, this sets up, again, we met Davos, and he's all pissy about, you left us, and you took my birthright. You took my birthright, and you left your post, and boy, I'm so angry. And Joy winds up a little bit more on the evil side after she discovers that her father's still alive, and Ward's been lying to her, and then she's conflicted because, well, I thought my dad's been dead for the last 12 years, and here he is, but, well, part of his soul just gets left behind every time he revived, and now he's kind of a bigger bastard than he was to begin with.
Well, I think Joy's whole arc can be summed up this way. When you and my father were dead, I was fine. I was a lawyer in a successful company that was being run by my brother, and all was well in the world. Sometimes I felt a little bad about screwing people, but hey, that's business. Then you come back to life. Then my father comes back to life, and oh, look, suddenly I have nothing. You must die, Danny Rand. You must die.
Yeah, I really wish they'd given her cathartic turn there a lot more attention in the show, because it feels a little bit. It feels a little weird when she just shows up in a bistro with Davos at the end, and they both go, Danny Rand. Boy, that guy. Yeah,
on the other hand, though, if they had made it too over dramatic, we'd be complaining about that too. I thought they handled it.
I just would have liked something.
I don't know. Maybe we should talk about this a little more when we actually get there. But suffice it to say, not every character has to be Maleficent.
I'm well aware of that.
She was a pretty wrapped. I mean, if you look at, I'm not a fashion person, but I think the wardrobe they chose for her spoke to the kind of characterization they were going for. The woman of set of Ann Coulter once upon a time. People they use Ann Coulter to store their cold beverages and lunches in her vagina, meaning to say that she's a cold fish, ladies and gentlemen. See, her refrigerator is like a vagina. That's the joke. That's what they're going for with Joy, that she's this ice queen, this cold, detached person, not given to flights of fancy or over dramatic, mustache twirly villainy. And and the best villains, as we say, are the ones who have a point of view and feel they are right or wronged in this case. Not wrong, but wrong. And you can see where she's coming from. You fuckers took everything from me. And it isn't as if she didn't try with Danny. She did. She did her best to bring him in, and in 2 or 3 instances, shot everything to hell because he's a dumb fuck. He's trying to do the right thing, but the right thing is not always the right thing. Yeah, as they tried to tell him, when you are the head of a business, sometimes the wrong thing is the right thing. And this is debatable, and this is Christopher the Mill, but this is the point of view she's coming from. And so I was very accepting of her, because she's not all the way there either. She's just sort of listening to Davos's pitch and going, okay, you are speaking to my anger and frustration and deep-seated sense of vengeance that I feel for these fucking people. I'm willing to hear you out. I'd like to subscribe to your newsletter, Davos. And we go on from there.
Well, and again, somewhat complicating the issue is the fact that she abandoned, her Ward tells her straight up, that's not Dad. Okay? And if you think it is, you're in danger. And she's like, I'm so sick of men and telling me I need to be saved and not to do stuff. And then, no, her dad is like deeply unhinged at this point and a little unhinged, unstable, violent.
And did we mention she was also shot in the belly? I'm just saying maybe Joy had a point. All right, we are all over the fucking place here.
Anyway, the last bit, as far as this goes, it comes from Danny Rand as he takes Colleen towards Kunlun because, I don't know, he thinks taking a former hand member, like she abandons the hand when she realizes it's not a good place. Like she thought it was, like a youth reform agency. Like, no, this aspect of the hand, we're going to be making the world a better place. We're going to be empowering the underprivileged youth, all this good stuff. And then their sensei is like, no, you stupid girl. No, that is not our goal. I'm creating an army. And I don't know why you didn't realize you were in a cult, but yeah, we're kind of a cult.
You're in a cult, Colleen. It's not a cult. No, it's a cult, babe.
It's not a cult. And no, he's got a point.
Just waiting for Barfum. We can't do that on television to come out. Don't encourage him.
No, I have this vision. For me, I kind of visualize that as a scene from The Emperor's New Groove, where Danny Rand is the angel version of her, going like, no, it's a cult, and then Bakuto is the devil version. Actually, this would be the other way around. Like Bakuto's like, no, it's not a cult, and Danny Rand's like, no, it's a cult. Here, look what I can do, and proceeds to do one-handed handstand push-ups. What does that have to do with? No, he's got a point. Anyway, yes. So again, he's taking her towards Kunlun because he wants to show her off to the people who raised him. I don't know. He's struggling for the socially acceptable thing to do.
Well, he recognizes that he did abandon his post, and that there was more to being the Iron Fist than just destroying things. And a big thing about this characterization that the reviewers that scored this as a rotten television show missed, because they're terrible at their job, is his realization that he wants to be more than just a destroyer. As it said in the comic book, he was given a choice and he chose death, and he realizes that he has chosen wrong, and so he is trying to make amends at the end of the show. But Colleen is out of the hand. She's lost her dojo. She really has nothing keeping her tethered to New York. and she loves Danny. And Danny says, well, I have an obligation to go back to Kunlun and, and go back to my post. But more than that, clearly the Iron Fist is more than just a destructive weapon, as he uses it to heal her earlier in the season. So so this is essentially the Luke Skywalker, after having his hand chopped off bit, going back to Dagobah to finish his training and honor his obligations. And just like in Return of the Jedi, come back and find your master is about to die. He comes back, and I'll let you finish.
And yeah, there's some dead monks at the beginning of the pass, and then the mystic city of Kunlun is not where he left it.
God damn it, I've misplaced my city again. Did you leave it in your other pants? I ain't got no other pants or shoes. All right. Thank you for that synopsis.
Such as it was.
Such as it was, yeah. All right, I'm not gonna belabor the episode by episode thing, but I mean, as far as a structure of conversation, I don't know any other way to do this but to go episode by episode. So let's start with Snow Gives Way. This is our introduction to the Meachums. This is our introduction to Danny. I really liked the opening to this. And I know everyone's like, oh, there was pacing issues and it starts off kind of slow, but I think you needed to. I think, unlike with Daredevil or Luke Cage, this is the least grounded of the three. And you needed to get to know, even though it's not particularly grounded, you still needed to get to know the world that they are living in. You're going to spend a lot of time with Danny and the Meachums. It was important to just give this episode over to them so that you could get to know these people, and Colleen for that matter. I really liked, at first I was a little put off by this, but I came around and I really liked the fact that Danny is treated as a crazy person and a threat by the Meachums. And at first I was like, heesh, just nobody listens, no, it's like, a little bit of patience and a little bit of understanding, and they could have skipped this entire episode. And I'm just like, I work with people who refuse to listen to who they perceive as unworthy and crazy all the time.
Well, you also deal with those who are actually crazy.
Well, again, you'd be surprised, and I don't want to talk about my job extensively, but let's put it this way: there's a lot of situations where you'll have an inmate who is banging and carrying on and making a lot of ruckus, and no one is paying any attention to them because that is how they are trained. But because I can't take the noise, I will go over to them and say, is there something I can help you with? And 9 out of 10 times, they are reasonable people making a reasonable request or asking reasonable questions that could have just as easily been dealt with. Now, in some of those cases, the deputies did deal with them reasonably, and the person continued to throw a tantrum. And that goes to a whole other conversation of, is the person giving you the information trustworthy or not? And a lot of times you're just like, you know what? When the cop doesn't tell me what I want to hear, I assume they're lying. But when the social worker says it to me, he's probably telling the truth. So
you're a trustworthy person.
Yeah, I got that face, But was that? So I thought about that as I was watching this. Like, no, this seems about right. I'm fairly certain if a homeless-looking man
wanders into your building and says, hey, I'm your best friend who's been dead for 15 years.
Right.
I mean,
why don't you have any shoes? Because I don't need them.
It's a perfectly reasonable reaction to kind of go,
I'm calling the cops. You're clearly a lunatic, and I'm calling the police. So I like that, but it also set up, I think, again, everyone's characterization. You have Joy, who is the opposite of that. You have Ward, who, one of the things overall that I like about Iron Fist, and I think it was better than Daredevil in this sense, is that not only were there twists and turns in the narrative, and you never quite knew who, other than Danny, you never quite knew who the good guys and the bad guys were in this thing. Everyone kept kind of, pulling a Pirates of the Caribbean 3, only it made sense. Everyone's just switching sides constantly. But not only that, but the characterizations kept going from sympathetic to unsympathetic. sometimes very rapidly. I mean, you say what you will about Ward, but Ward starts off as extremely unsympathetic, and you think he's going to be the big bad in this thing, and it's going to be him and Danny for 13 episodes, against each other. And then the more you get to know him, the more you realize what kind of situation he was in, and you start to understand why he's handling it the way that he is. And drug addictions aside, because who doesn't have their vices? You start to see his point of view, and you're like, he's not that bad of a guy. And you have Colleen, who starts off as very cold to Danny and very untrusting, and then you start to feel sympathetic towards her, and then she's part of the hand, and you're like, you bitch, you lied, you cheated, you lied, you said that you loved me. And then you don't feel sympathetic towards her, and then she's trying to win her way back to Danny, and then she suddenly realizes, hey, wait a minute, I've been had. And you're like, yay, congratulations for finally getting with it. So, I mean, and the same thing with Joy. Joy's the first one to start to warm to Danny, and then everything goes off the fucking track. And then you're like, okay, well, I get why she's as mad as she is. So, and even Harold floats back and forth too, where you're like, oh, okay, he's clearly an ally. Oh, he's the enemy. Oh, he's actually the big bad of this entire series. Yikes. So, but that all needs a strong foundation, and it all starts in this first episode. And you can say what you want about pacing issues and how much time is spent. But again, I go back to, I don't understand what professional reviewers want in a television show, because as I've said before, you need to spend time with these characters as characters. You can't rush through these things, or what they do later on isn't going to make any sense on any critical level. May make sense narratively, but then you're just on a roller coaster ride, and you're not really being told a story with characters. You're just watching actors do stuff, which isn't interesting to me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you do have to get to know characters if you're going to spend any appreciable amount of time with them. And the first episode does a decent job of that. We get a little bit of what Finn Jones is going to bring to the table, although he brings a little bit more as the show progresses, and we get his, I'm going to say bipolarism, but bearing in mind that I know he's not actually bipolar in the traditional definition of the word.
I'm going to go with developmentally stunted. And by the way, the next episode where they start throwing out random diagnoses really annoyed the shit out of me. But yes, he has definitely got a case of the PTSDs and some developmental retardation. Not that he's mentally retarded, but come on.
He was raised by monks. And
emotionally, he stopped growing at about 15.
Yeah, he was taught and told specifically that you are going to be a weapon, and weapons feel no emotion, and you have to suppress and destroy all of these things in order to reach your truest potential, so on and so forth. So
yes,
yeah,
a subtlety completely missed by many of the reviewers, by the way. Like,
you mean something they weren't able to pick up on something as subtle as more than one character saying more than once.
Well, I mean, Danny's presentation, Danny's character is more than just I am a ninja doing ninja things. He is, again, somebody whose emotional, developmental, retardation has made him somebody who may be living in an adult body, but is reacting to things like a teenager. And one of the great aspects of this show is you have an unreliable hero with no plan. He's just reacting to things, and he's acting on impulse. And it's great because he's not crazy. He's just a child with enormous power. And he doesn't quite know what to do. And it's not like Encino Man or anything like that, but he's not that drastic. But I mean, you have this sense of him that he's placed in these extraordinary situations, and he's given all of this information about his family and everything, and he's just sort of reacting. And the best reflection of that is watching the reactions of Colleen and Claire, who are like, we're following you, but you seem like a nut job with no man crazy, has no plan. And Danny even realizes that on some level, where he's like, I don't know what the fuck to do.
Okay, we're going to go get Madame Gao. How are we going to do it? I don't know. I'll figure it out when I get there. How are we going to get her back to the States? Or are we going to do that? What are we doing here? We got on a plane and we flew to China. Can we get to the part? Can we get to phase 2? And his response is phase 3 profit.
Exactly. And I love that about him. I don't want to see an invulnerable superhero who has all the answers all the time for 13 episodes. That's boring as shit. I want somebody who's struggling with, I don't know what to do next. So, like, I know you're not like fans of the CW melodrama superhero shows.
Hate.
But there's a lot of that.
No.
There's a
hate.
Okay. There's a lot of that in those shows, of people with enormous power and great integrity making all kinds of mistakes. You know, you have the Flash, who's just like, every decision I've made has hurt people, has been out of my own fears. You have,
Yet I will continue to make these same stupid decisions that inevitably wind up with me being choke-slammed by my opponent. Literally. I'm running fast and they grab me by the throat. Boy, I wish I could avoid this.
You know, you have Supergirl, who tends to set her entire world on fire, to cut off her nose to spite her face. You have a similar thing with Arrow, where where Oliver tends to make one terrible mistake after another.
Someone gave him Batman: A Death in the Family, and he realized it was a book of prophecy.
So I like characters who are struggling with their deficits of personality. Enormous power, small, terrible decision-making processes. And what else are you going to do in television but talk about those things? So just for the sake of moving this on, let's unless you got anything to say about episode 1.
Nothing in particular, no.
All right, let's slide right into Shadowhawk Takes Flight. This is one of my favorite episodes of the season.
Really? It wouldn't happen to coincide with your love of both mental health and prison movies, would it?
What? What are you talking about? I'm watching Legion right now, and we'll be talking about that next week. Hopefully, Blog Talk Radio will get its shit together by then, and we won't have this problem again. But moving right along, you have another situation where, look, we know as the audience that he is a reliable narrator and that he did do these things. Kunlun is a real place. He really is the Iron Fist. But the episode is fun in the same way that Legion is fun, because it really does try to make you question all of that. You also know Legion is a mutant with these enormous psychic powers. And as episode, not to be all spoiler on you, but as the episodes go on, you realize he's not so much schizophrenic as he is possessed. But the narration is still unreliable. That's how the show was presented. That's how this episode was presented. You are sympathetic towards Danny because you, as the audience member, know what his real story is. But by the same token, he's in a situation where if you don't know any of that, he does sound like a crazy person. And you have these other characters around him just making it worse, I absolutely, by the way, for future Hollywood, please consult an actual mental health expert if you're going to throw in gobbledygook diagnoses in there, because those were all wrong. It was like,
I think that was the point. Hang on, I want to touch on this briefly. I understand what you're saying. Like, oh no, you've got a schizoaffective disorder, and these are buzzwords that get thrown around. And I'm sure at some point your llama or whatever in charge of Scientology said at least one of them was not true. But what I got from that was much less, okay, these people are competent mental health professionals and these are people who need help on this level, and more, we got a never-ending stream of people we can bill the state for. Let's make sure they all stay here. that was much more what I got out of it than like. Okay, we have doctors of psychology on staff. No one's going to bother questioning them. We can actually make up whatever we want and in world. Like, okay, we need to keep a inmate population of at least 30. Okay? This guy, he's not crazy. He seems emotionally stunted. There's a personality. He's a borderline personality disorder with schizoaffective tendencies. Well, what does that mean? It means he should stay here and you should continue funding this particular institution.
Okay. That's all well and good, but when the inmate's doing it, okay, fine. I get it. I mean, if I haven't been told at least a dozen times a day by at least a dozen people I'm bipolar schizophrenic, which isn't a real thing. I'm bipolar
individually.
Okay. I get it. You want Xanax. Move along, Shecky. I get that. But when they have the character portraying the doctor, who isn't a quack, doing it, I'm like, ugh. When he diagnoses Danny at the end of the episode, I'm like, come on. Was it really that difficult to just say he has PTSD? And he has PTSD, and maybe some mood disorder, NOS with psychotic features. Was it that hard? For fuck's sake. Or maybe psychosis NOS.
It probably was simply because, well, we'd actually have to look this up and then we'd be assuming that our viewers would know those words. Whereas if we just say...
he has an anxiety disorder. I believe he goes, he has an anxiety disorder with psychotic features, and I almost threw something at the television.
Again, it's not a thing. I mean... those are not words that actually go together within the context he's trying to use them.
Yeah. It annoys me as much as people on television still using the phrase manic depressive. We've moved on from this. It's bipolar disorder. Fuck.
Yeah, no, anytime I'm manic depressive. No. That is not the actual terminology. That is not what it is.
Yeah.
And you're a professional writer.
People in podcasts going like, what difference does it make? Well, come on.
It matters.
It does. It really does. God, even the wiki has it. Edmonds does not believe it and diagnoses him with an anxiety disorder caused by trauma. Yes, it has a name, people. It's called Voldemort. Post-traumatic stress disorder.
We used to just call it shell shock.
Yeah, we did.
I would have so much preferred that the doctor say, you've got shell shock.
Yes.
At which point Danny should look at him and go, what are you, from World War I? Is the 1920s?
I am also glad that, unlike with Daredevil, where it felt like it just took forever to get him into the suit and really see the full breadth of his powers, and not just a guy running around in his pajamas with a blindfold on, punching people.
The suit's immaterial to Daredevil's abilities. Whereas... What? No. The suit does not matter to Daredevil. He is just as effective without it as he is with it in many ways.
Okay, I'm not arguing that point. The point that I was trying to get to was, as a fan of comic books, you want to see them use their powers. You want to see them look like their comic book character counterpart. And where I'm going with this is, at least it only took 2 episodes before you finally saw the Iron Fist in use in spectacular fashion. Because there's a tendency to really make you wait on that sort of thing. And maybe Daredevil wasn't the best example, but still, it's like, you watch a superhero.
Luke Cage got shot several times in the first episode.
Exactly. You got to see Jessica Jones jump really high and punch people really hard. I'm not asking for a lot here. But, you didn't get to see it at all in the first episode. And then
you got to see Luke Cage make fun of the original costume for...
That's fantastic. I look like a damn fool. Yes, you do. But a spectacular one. The point is, they only used 2 episodes to build it up. And when you finally get to see the Iron Fist, it's very satisfying. I did love the "What about me? What about Raven?" little wink and a nod there, where they talked about it earlier in the episode, where being beaten up was the only way he felt alive, and they're giving him psychotropic medication, so he can't focus enough to get his chi going to actually use the Iron Fist. And then they have the patients rather beat the shit out of him, and he's just smiling and taking it. And finally, he's like, "Yeah, got my mojo back," and biggity bam, you finally get to see the living weapon do his thing, and he blows the wall out with the Iron Fist, and it's like, hooray! We got to see it at the end of episode 2.
Masochism.
Well, I mean, look, a show of an Iron Fist, if you don't get to see the Iron Fist fairly often, it's kind of a rip. So in this episode and then overall, I'm glad there was at least fairly liberal use of the Iron Fist within the confines of the rules they set up, which is if he uses it too much, it drains his chi. I'm okay with all of that. But just in general, I really enjoyed this episode.
I'm sure you did. You've talked a lot about it. I don't have anything really for this one. Apart from general frustration with the trope of, well, no, we all think he's crazy. Quick, put him in the hospital where no one will believe him and they'll pump him full of drugs. And again, my fatigue with that general, again, trope throughout television and film is not at all the fault of this particular show or episode, and it's executed fine.
It fit the narrative. It fit the decision to do so was absolutely in line with what the characters could and would do.
Again, that's why I'm saying it fits. Like my fatigue with it is not relevant to the discussion here.
Okay. All right. Episode 3, Rolling Thunder Cannon Punch. I love these names.
They're all meant to represent kung fu techniques.
Good. Oh, fantastic. So Harold,
not being a fan of kung fu movies, would not know that.
Nope. So here we have Harold, who's revealed to be a fan under the thumb of the hand.
Say it.
Wing is attacked by Ward's mercenaries, whom she overpowers before being confronted by Rand, whom she allows to stay at the dojo. Rand visits Joy, who offers him $100 million. Chump change, baby. If he
Considering he's supposed to be worth billions, and he's deeply insulted by the offer, not because, it's like, oh, I hate money and I am an anti-capitalist. It's just like, I don't want money. I want my fucking life back.
Right. Well, he pulls a crucible here. That bit at the end of the crucible about, I will not sign my name. It is my name, and I may never have another, which I really liked. I enjoyed that when it's used properly in film and television. As far as tropes go. So here we bring back the Jerry Hogarth character from Jessica Jones, who there's legal wrangling to get him his just desserts and what he is due. We see Rand go back to Colleen's dojo, and he beats the shit. He fucking knocks one kid off his feet.
Oh, he whacked him in the shin with a kendo stick. Shut up.
Practically crippled the child.
I'm sure there was a lawsuit, and at least one hysterical mother or aunt. That crazy white boy done crippled my son.
Anyway, as it turns out, Joy, having a soft spot for Danny and not wanting to fuck the guy entirely, ends up giving a homemade ceramic bowl which has Rand's fingerprint, which allows them to prove he is who he is. And then I think at the end of the day, I don't know if it's this episode or the next one, where Danny discovers that Harold is actually alive, and Harold basically is like, yeah, I need him to go after the hand. I don't need him in court with you fucking people. Give him whatever. Just make him happy. And I think that's the next episode where they do that.
Probably.
So this episode was basically just sort of closing off the arc of Danny's homecoming and moving the action forward. Where Danny can deal with the hand, which is part of one half at least of the major source of conflict for the entire series. If you can really sum up what was the series about, it was the Iron Fist versus the hand, in whatever form it was taking place in whatever episode. So that they can get there, they just sort of wrapped up the loose threads of the first 2 episodes. I don't really have a whole lot to add to it besides that. There's
not much else that goes on.
Episode 4 is the 8-diagram Dragon Palm. This is where he had been knocked off the building at the last part of the last episode. This is where he discovers Harold's alive. Harold tells Ward, a very, very annoyed Ward, just accept Rand's return to the company. There's also the bit here where Danny inserts himself into a stockholders meeting where he basically was just like, give the drugs away.
We developed a cure for leishmaniasis, and well, because we're a company, we need to make profit. And Danny's like, no, you're going to save lives. Danny, do you have the vaguest conception of how much money goes into pharmaceutical development? Just any at all. Because it is the most ludicrously expensive process, I believe, in like again, if you're looking at the economy, and okay, I have a new product that I would like to develop and create and bring to market for profit. I think literally everything is both faster, cheaper, and easier than pharmaceuticals. I mean, again, literally everything. I've got a new gunpowder. All right, we'll take a look. New synthetic explosives. Yep. Sign up over here. I've got this new product. It's a better mousetrap. All right, we love you. We want to license it and sell it. I want to make a new drug. Whoa. Get in line over there, and we'll take your deposit of $80 million up front. Because we're going to have to get a bunch of people to look at it. We're going to have to get a bunch of people, and these are all salaried people. And then we're going to have to test it, and we're going to have to test it, and we're going to have to test it, and then we're going to have to tweak it, and then we're going to have to test it, and then we're going to have to tweak it, and then we're going to have to test it.
The FDA official to say it's okay, even if it gives you ass teeth.
And then we have to get it licensed. Yeah, then we have to get it approved, and then we have to do the next round of testing, and we have to compensate everyone, and this takes years. And again, hundreds, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And we finally got it. We've got this dialed in. This is a real disease. That's a real problem. And we're ready. We're going to become the leader in this space. And boy, are we going to clean up. And I've got 51% of the vote. And I say sell it at cost. Now, that individual would be thrown from the building so fast.
You better have the iron fist, and you better land on it, otherwise you're a dead man.
Again, like, I understand the motif that they're trying to go for here of, well, Danny, but yeah, the real killer for me is that whole bit was no one bothered trying to explain to him, okay, you don't want to sell him for $50 a pill because you have a moral perspective on this. Okay. We can work with this. All of these really impoverished nations or, places like that, sure, we can sell it at cost. But when we're selling this to the Italians and the Canadians, can we maybe turn a profit here? No.
Well, that was the thing. I think you have the writers who chose this as a moment, really weird moment, to do like an editorial on, our post-Trump world where everyone's a greedy fuck. And there's no consideration for nothing. And I'm like, come on. Yes, there's a lot of greed, but that's not 100% true across the board. And I honestly think that in real life, if you had somebody who was like, hey, look, I don't think this is the sort of thing where we need to make an assload of profit on. I think there's a reasonable conversation to be had of, well, here we're going to charge more, but here we're not. And maybe we reduce our profit, but we're going to make one. In this sector over here. And it's just, it isn't like everyone just starts fanning themselves. Like it's the old South.
They all clutch their pearls and collapse on the fainting couch.
Yeah. But it's also a narrative device. It was a way to build up to them throwing Danny and the Meachums off the ship so that they can turn around and get it back. And ultimately have the poor black guy fucking shoot himself, or get shot rather.
But the final narrative of our Trumpian society, wherein the thought to be dead white billionaire with a slightly weird haircut shoots the upright and enterprising black executive in the head and then has it blamed on suicide.
Surprised more wasn't written about that.
I hate people so much. Just say it.
We're going to move a little faster here. I mean, we're addressing these things, but unless there's something, major to talk about, those are the plot points of it. It was fine. Again, this is the other side of Danny's immaturity. On the one side, he's doing something virtuous. On the other side, he doesn't understand how the world works. And it's sort of well, I have the power to do anything I want. Yes, but you're an asshole. Calm the fuck down.
I can do whatever I want. Yeah, but you don't quite seem to get how gravity works.
So it's just, this is more laying the foundation for the things that are going to come later as far as Danny's behavior and decision-making, as we talked about earlier. Episode 5, Underleaf Pluck Lotus. This is the introduction of the synthetic heroin. At this point, Danny is primarily concerned about the pier and connection to the hand, and we have our shield moment of the day where, oh my god, the Rand Corporation has been completely taken over by the hand. Okay, this was an element of the story that I actually had a real problem with, and not that I mean, I don't care that they set this up where like the hand has infiltrated Rand, but then they did nothing with it, and their infiltration seemed to be on one floor in a room briefly.
Well, no, hang on. The point there was that Gao had that floor forever and had been in business with Rand for as long as Danny's been alive, basically.
Their portrayal, the way they described it was, again, like they're doing on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or had done on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Let me try this one more time. Like they did in Captain America, the second one, where it was like almost half of S.H.I.E.L.D. were sleeper Hydra agents, and it's brought out in spectacular display at the end when everyone's having a fucking Mexican standoff as they're all pointing guns at each other.
Well, I'll say that I was okay with it simply for one very specific reason, maybe two. On the one hand, yeah, Gao is using Rand, and so there is a degree of truth to it. The flip side, and the reason I'm okay with it more or less, is because you get that information from Harold, who is blatantly manipulating Danny, who doesn't have the good sense to realize he's being manipulated. Saying the hand has infiltrated Rand Enterprises, I mean, really, the first letter is so similar. Can't you just see it, Danny? They're everywhere. We gotta uproot them. And Danny, being, again, a teenager with grandeur and delusions of grandeur, going, yes, I must save my father's company from the evil of the hand. And really, it's not that big a deal. But he's the hype man telling Danny, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to get him, and all of Rand's shortcomings are because of this multi-level systemic infestation of ninjas who want to sell heroin. And Danny's just like, yes, my purpose is fulfilled. I will do this. And Harold's in the back of his head going, where in the world, what did I do to get so blessed with such a willing tool?
You dummy. All right, I get that. I retract my comment because I didn't make the connection that he was openly manipulating Danny, because at the time, and again, you may be more perceptive with this sort of stuff than I am, but at the time, Harold is still portrayed as a sympathetic ally to
Here's why, and again, whether or not you saw Harold really being the true villain coming or not, again, this is one of those things that I thought was very obvious. Even when you're unsure about his eventual fate, so to speak, the way he talks to everyone else when Danny is not there versus how he conducts himself when Danny is there, or the way he speaks to Danny specifically, again, it just looked to me like, okay, maybe you're a good guy. Maybe you're just trying to get out from under the hand. I didn't buy that, but maybe you are. But there is such a very obvious difference in how he interacts with Danny versus how he interacts with, again, literally everyone else. That, yeah, maybe he's not, and again, because he's a Shades of Grey character for so long, maybe he's not a complete jackass. Maybe he's not, again, someone we want to see thrown off a building or punched in the face repeatedly. But you're clearly manipulating this guy to your own ends. Maybe your own ends just aren't don't turn you into a complete bag of dicks.
All right. We also got our reintroduction rather, to Claire Temple, the night nurse, who has been in all the series so far. I I don't know. I'm always waiting for her to be like, I have this lawyer friend, and actually have Daredevil show up in an episode. And we knew Luke Cage wasn't going to show up because he's in prison. But I just thought it was weird that she has connections to at least 2 living, breathing, non-in-prison superheroes. That, you know, and so like, I really did expect her to go get Murdoch when they were going to China. And she's like, nope, I have no superpowers and have no business doing this. I'm just here to patch up the superheroes when they have, you know, a shotgun blast to their impenetrable face, or, you know, they're after being beat to shit and dumped in a garbage can, you know, freaking putting them back together again. But sure, I'll go to China and take on ninjas. Well, that works. You just missed it because it's radio and not TV, but I just did the crusty face.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's on Fox. But Claire is a Claire Temple, the night nurse, is a fun character. You know, she's sort of your guide for the, you know, for people not living in this fantastical universe. You know, she's your average everyday person dealing with a wonderland of crazy superheroes, and that is the purpose she serves. And she's generally the conscience of all the people. She has a great line.
She annoyed me in this towards the end of her arc in this series. She annoyed me to death.
Well, she has one line at the end of this thing that I really liked, and she's talking to Danny, and she's like, you know, I have met a lot of the superheroes that have come through New York, and you are some dark people dealing with some very intense stuff. You know, and it's true, and it's an astute observation. You know, you have these people with these grand illusions of what they can accomplish and what their mission statement is, but inside they are just torn, broken people trying to find their way in the world. And I thought it was good they used her to voice that, you know, if Marvel does one thing well, and one thing I think better than DC ever did, especially now, maybe outside of the Arrowverse, is this isn't just about fantastical superpowers and good versus evil. This is about people, and people are complex, and they're shades of gray, and they struggle with their humanity and their sense of purpose. And those were always the best stuff of, you know, the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby comics. And it's coming out in these shows. And again, this is why I say I think Iron Fist really does a better job of that than the Daredevil, especially the second season, did, of showing this isn't just a guy with a superpowered hand. This is about a guy with all of these different struggles and how this affects everybody around him. And, you know, and outside of Jessica Jones, and maybe to an extent Luke Cage, but, you know, the 2 seasons of Daredevil and 1 of Iron Fist, a great similarity between them is, despite being heroes in the traditional sense, they are destructive people. Whose lives have they touched that ended better than when they started after having met these people? I mean, Luke Cage, you can say, well, he saved Harlem. But
he didn't.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know about too many. I mean, you know, the one guy ended up dead.
Look, he got Pops killed. He destroyed part of a club. He got again, I think that's one of the things about, and I think the primary reason you only get a little of that with Jessica Jones because it is so focused.
It's a personal story. It's a very personal story.
But I mean, even at that, like the chick that she saves in the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no, I killed my parents and I have to stand trial, and then she winds up committing suicide. Like, or, you know, you've got, I mean, the only person she's remotely close to in the series, I mean, she's around Jerry, and Jerry gets nearly traumatized because David Tennant is, you know, the Purple Man is a terrible, terrible person. But you know, she brings the Purple Man.
Death by 1,000 Cuts. Still one of the greatest parts of that series.
Now that really was. Then you, but I mean, like, then you got, okay, the Purple Man's parents, because I need proof. And, well, no, I'll just get, and no, they die violently. Like, the only person who does not come out abjectly worse for knowing her is her friend who's going to wind up being Hellcat, whose name I forget.
Well, isn't that basically like her adoptive sister?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then, there's a perfectly valid argument that, no, she got put through some serious stuff that she would not have been put through if Jessica had just like... I mean, come on. She almost killed Luke Cage.
Not for nothing, but the Defenders is not a great name for this team. It should be called the Tragedies.
Yeah, something like that. And again, yeah, I mean,
wow,
Matt Murdock is... Murdock constantly struggles with the duality of his life and Daredevil, and yeah, it's... None of these these are not happy people, and they do not have happy stories.
No, they do not. Let's speaking of happy stories here, let's move on to our next episode. Immortal emerges from cave. In order to satisfy Joy, Ward throws all of his drugs away. He and Rand start searching the warehouses for Rand Enterprises in order to find clues.
They find the guy's head.
That they do. There's the crisis management meeting regarding we didn't address this, but there's a thing where they have these chemical plants or whatever on Staten Island that may or may not be giving people cancer. But the thing is, well, we followed the law and everything is above board and we haven't done anything wrong, so go fuck yourself. And so,
So they play on Danny because he's an idiot. Yeah. My son has cancer and your plant gave it to him. I'm so sorry. We're going to make this right. Oh, the 51% shareholder just admitted culpability.
Right.
When really, so again, all he's trying to do is express sympathy.
Right.
But because of his position and because of our society and the way it works, expressing sympathy is the same as expressing guilt. And he may, I almost got this. I liked the idea that, and I don't think they touched on this again really, but I really liked the idea that, no, it wasn't just this grieving woman trying to find financial support or justice for her son and, his cancer. But they're like, okay, no, this guy's an idiot. Like, he wants to sell drugs at cost. And we've got a problem here, but there is no legal recourse for what we're trying to do.
Right.
Hey, this guy's an idiot. We can get him to admit to something, and the lawyer tapes the whole thing. Sure. Again, I really liked the subplot of, these are people who might have a legitimate gripe, but they're still terrible people because, well, we're going to set up this poor, naive schmuck.
Right. So there's this crisis management thing going on. The other half of this, the action side, is you've got the chemist who they want him to give up the formula for the synthetic heroin, which he won't. So they're essentially blackmailing him by having his daughter held hostage. And so Danny's going to go save her. He's going to do a tournament of death of sorts, where basically if he wins, if he beats 3 different opponents in this gauntlet, then he gets the girl back. If he doesn't, he dies. Of course, he fucking wins, but then Gal basically tells him withdraw, and she pulls a Darth Vader on him. I am altering the deal. Pray I do not alter it any further. But he gets the girl back.
Which doesn't matter because the hands steal back the chemist while he's off doing this.
Yeah. This was directed by the RZA of the Wu-Tang Clan. What did you think of this? Because I don't want to get too much into my thoughts on this episode. Yeah, you who do enjoy a good fight scene. This half of this episode deals with this gauntlet,
which really ought to tell you how the fact that I am an enthusiast for movie fight scenes and I don't care about this episode ought to tell you the sum total of my thoughts on it.
Okay, keep going.
It's all. All of, I mean, look, there's a complaint that was leveled by several of the critics that the fight scenes in this show are forgettable. And I don't think they're wrong. Is excuse me, the best way to say that. I mean, you get a few of the traditional, kind of kung fu moments. This one opens with, okay, I'm going to fight two guys at once, and they're going to have knives, and I can't fall out of the circle. I mean, the only quasi-interesting thing about this is his somehow like extraplanar communication with his old master, who gives him advice as the fights go on and he has to make adjustments. I mean, his fight with the two Russian guys is it's okay. I mean, look, one guy fighting two should never work. I mean, just, really, no, there's two guys. Oh, I know what I'm doing. Well, there's still two of them. I mean, the skill differential for you to overcome being 100% outnumbered is massive. And if you don't believe me, by all means, check out some articles by Jack Slack on Fightland about the art of wushu and fighting many guys at once. It just doesn't work.
Let me ask you this. I want you to put on your MMA hat for a second, kind of. One of the criticisms that came out of this was, well, Daredevil featured a lot of stylized action. This lacked in that department. One, agree or disagree. Two, do you think this episode sort of made up for the overall lack of stylization in the fighting?
The problem with the style that they use for Danny Rand is that there's only two ways to go about stylizing fights. You either make them as believably realistic as possible to the audience who knows nothing about actual fighting, right? And you get and believe it or not, about half of Daredevil's fight scenes fall into that category. Of, okay, there's the occasional fancy flip kick as a finishing blow, but most of the actual hand-to-hand combat is about 50% of them. It's designed to mimic reality and to make you think this could actually happen. And the fact that Daredevil uses about a 30% boxing-based attack helps with that. And then the other 50% are just completely over the top and utterly ridiculous. But that's the only other way to go, is you either try to make it believable or you just have to go completely over the top. And this one, I think, winds up trying to do both. It's meant to be like, well, this is what Kung Fu would look like if it worked in real life. Well, if Kung Fu worked in real life, Roy Nelson would be a champion. Roy Nelson's not a champion for a reason. I don't mean that. I'm not trying to piss on the art. I respect the art. I really do. But what we're trying to do from a cinematic perspective here, it falls too much into, well, it's stylized, but it's grounded, and it straddles that line too much. And the fact that the whole basis for the second fight is not actually a fight. The place wherein this series succeeds with its fight choreography is when weaponry is introduced. There are some really good, again, weapon-based fights. But anytime it's just kind of hand-to-hand, and again, 2-on-1, it just doesn't work. It's sorry. Unless there is a massive, massive skill differential.
I fast-forwarded through a lot of the fighting of this. I don't take anything away from people who enjoy this sort of thing. I am into the drama. Sometimes I'm into the melodrama. Hello, Arrowverse. I am into a certain degree of action. But if it's just two guys having a fight, I'd actually much prefer to watch MMA. At least, you know, even the most boring fight I've ever seen, and boy knows I've watched enough MMA to see some real stinkers. At least there's a degree of dramatic tension. Both guys, generally speaking, are trying. And too much televised fighting just seems like dancing. It's a big reason why I've lost a lot of interest in professional wrestling, that without the dramatic tension that made the matches interesting, and you have them in some cases, but you know, the sterilized environment of which the WWE has created the modern wrestling match has taken all the dramatic tension out of it for me. You know, they have their big matches, their big time pay-per-view matches with some of the guys that are able to perform at that caliber. And those become interesting and I'm engaged. But otherwise, it's a lot of dancing and it's very flat for me. And with all respect to the RZA, who I'm sure this whole thing was an exercise in self-flagellation, it held no interest for me. I just wanted it to be over. You want to respond to that, or should we just move on?
Only to say that I've seen plenty of MMA fights that I would rather watch almost anything other than.
Well, you watch a lot more MMA than I do, sir.
I watched Jake Shields fight John Fitch, all right?
Oh, God. A match to stop time.
It basically did. I watched Gonzaga versus Konstantin Arokin. I watched, oh, geez, what was that awful one from? My point here is I have seen atrocious MMA, and I would take even like for some of the forgettable fight scenes from this show over it unequivocally.
Okay, and that's fair, but the general point I think still stands. You have to have a reason for them fighting, and it has to be more than just visually stimulating. And I think they tried, and maybe they succeeded in some people's eyes, but for me, the best parts of Iron Fist deal with the more emotional ends of things and the more the twists and turns in the plot. The fighting, it just didn't do anything for me. Episode 7, Felling Tree with Roots. So here's where we have the start of Harold's demise as such. He ends up killing 2 hand operatives, and then he has Ward dump them in the river like you do.
Let me just say this. I appreciate that they actually showed how difficult it can be to get rid of a body. And, you know, the lengths to which one must go to remove proper identification. Because Harold taking a claw hammer to the guy's teeth because dental records are a thing, that's about right. You cut off the hands, you cut off the feet, you remove the teeth, and you burn the face with acid, bleach, some such chemical, and you're pretty well set, unless their DNA's in the system. Also, dead bodies are difficult to move. Like, I can't tell you all how much I am sick of so many shows or movies. Like, okay, this is a dead body. All right, I'm going to pick it up. We're going to move it over here. No, that is, depending on, again, there's size variables, but that is, 200 some odd pounds of dead weight, and not dead weight in the sense that I can bench press 200 pounds. I can carry this guy. I can deadlift, so much. The human body does not conform to even the crappiest weightlifting bar. It is not centered. It is disarticulated. It moves. It flops. It is terrible. It is if you want the rough equivalent of moving a human body, find the tubes that you need for a waterbed, all right? Get a 200-pound one of those and try moving it around. It is a nightmare.
How many bodies have you disposed of, sir?
I will not answer that question.
Under fear it may end you in jail.
Just not
land
answering.
you in jail, rather.
There's no particular reason. I'm not under any sort of compulsion to do so.
You are certainly not under oath, sir, but you're freaking me the fuck out. All right. So this is also the bit where Danny tells Gao to the floor of the Rand building that she's running, and learns about the heroin and all of that. This whole episode, there's 2 major things that happen here. We have Gao, who goes back to China, and then you have
far beyond the reach of
yes. Then you have Ward, who finally fucking snaps and stabs his father, and then dumps him in the river.
Which was a long time coming.
Yeah, well, this is, just to take a break and talk about Ward for a minute, because we haven't really mentioned much about him. He really does start up as a bag of dicks. And, and it's not like at any time in the series, you see this, wonderful human being just eking to get out.
There is no golden soul living at the bottom of said bag of dicks, but you begin to understand that this poor kid never actually had a chance.
No. And when he stabs the father, you're with him. This is not an act of evil rage. This is such frustration, and the man is at the end of his rope. He's just been humiliated. All he wanted. This is, by the way, just so you understand the details of this. He's trying to leave. He is trying to become his own man. He is trying to walk away from things, and his father takes all of his money and says, "You done fucked up, Sonny. You are mine. I own you." And he reacts accordingly.
Yeah, there's my favorite Ward moment, and I don't remember if it comes in this episode or one of the 2 or 3 immediately following it. When he gets his sister aside and kind of goes, if Dad hadn't tied up everything, all of our finances and whatnot into this company, would we even be here? And it's very clear that he would not. No, right. I'm here because Dad made me. And that's it. I don't want to be here. I have no idea of kind of my own identity. And you ask her, do you remember what you wanted to be when you were a little girl?
Well, again, a subtlety missed by the reviewers of this thing is thematically, what is Iron Fist about but identity? You have Joy struggling with it. You have Danny struggling with it. And you have Ward struggling with it. These are 3 people who were sort of forced into a life that they may not have ever gone after or accepted, and deciding, and looking in the mirror and going, is this who I am meant to be? Could I be something else? And that's good grist for the mill. That's an interesting story to tell. I get why a lot of people didn't get it, because, it's not screaming at them in bright colors and hitting them over the head with a dead fish. There's subtleties here, but whatever. Can't expect critics to understand how television works and narratives. I get it.
Look, if you want to go into a profession where your performance is utterly irrelevant, where you can be terrible at your job, be a critic and be a combat sports judge.
Hey, I was a combat sports judge once upon a time on the amateur level.
And there's a reason you didn't become a professional, because you would have had to deal with all of that crap.
Chapter 8 here, The Blessing of Many Fructions. Yes, this is where Danny and company go to China. Man crazy, has no plan. This is a lot of action in this episode, but this is also Danny starting to become unhinged. This is where you really start to see another side of Danny, in that, at this point, you start to see him unravel, basically. Up to this point, it was, I got to prove who I am. Okay, I proved who I am. Now I got to get my life back. Oh my God, I got to go after the hand. And he gets to this, it's almost like the zenith of everything that's happened in his life to this point. And then he's like, okay, I have made it to the mountaintop. I have made it to the place where I now have to do something. And I haven't the foggiest fucking clue what I'm supposed to do. Shit. It's great. I mean, just him standing outside of the of Gallus' facility, just with his shoulders haunched and his hands in a fist, and he just wanted to smack the shit out of Claire and Colleen. He's like, I didn't even ask you to come on this trip.
But to be fair, at this point, Claire is quite obnoxiously repetitive. I would have smacked her too.
But episode 8 is, other than episode 2, episode 8 has my favorite bit from the entire series. Folks, I don't know a lot about martial arts, but I know what I like. And my favorite style of all time, by far, is drunken boxing. Love it. Used to play a monk in Dungeons and Dragons whose martial arts technique was drunken boxing. Yep, I was a drunken monk. I loved this. This was a fight scene I could watch on a loop. I was so happy that they had a featured daylight, well-lit fight that took forever with a guy drinking wine while he's fighting, and he's winning. It's awesome. I could not say enough good things about this. I mean, we really do need to move this on, but if nothing else happened in this episode, just Danny versus a drunken boxer would have made me giddy beyond belief. I absolutely adored this fight scene, and it's the highlight of the show for me.
All right.
You have nothing to say about drunken boxing, or at least this particular fight?
Nope. I think you covered it.
All right.
I clearly don't feel as passionately about it as you do. And honestly, it felt... how do I say this? The showrunner for this show has a lot of problems. A lot. And I feel like he decided, okay, this is going to be at least part kung fu show. So here's my checklist. This is the Brett Ratner School of Filmmaking, by the way.
Checklist as received from the studio executives.
Yes. And one of those was it's a kung fu style movie. Well, everyone knows drunken boxing, right? Okay, we got to have a drunk guy fight at some point. All right, where can we do this? This right here. All right, here's where it will be. And that's kind of what it felt like.
Okay, I think I was just so happy to see it, I didn't care, and I thought it fit though. You know, you don't want to like make an obvious guard outside. You're trying to be all subtle about your goings on. But I thought the reveal that he was a martial arts master and a drunk was great. I thought it all fit in that particular scene. Couple of other details. Rand figures out that Gal poisoned the pilots that caused the crash.
So she's the author of all his pain until she's not. Which, incidentally, can I just say this? The title of the next episode, I seem to recall, is Mistress of All Agonies. I feel like that's a reference to our bit, okay? That's all I'm saying.
Yes. Once again, the unpaid intern listening to this podcast. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Often sung around my house these days.
Because I'm really going to need that boat.
Boat snack. Anywho. So, yeah, she's the author of all his pain. He almost kills her, but then doesn't, and then he puts her in a knapsack, and they take her back to the Americas.
Killed her. Can I just say this really briefly?
Yes.
I understand that for narrative purposes and for the purposes of crafting heroes, you don't want them to just murder people indiscriminately.
You mean like Batman?
You need long-term characters, and you're trying to create people of that are in some way you should aspire to be like. And murder tends to run contrary to that based on our current cultural mores. But really, I mean, the Punisher's not wrong, okay? Like, because there's this bit that Claire has, and I can't remember if it's here or later. Like, no, I believe in the value of life and every life, and I rolled my eyes, and I actually almost said this out loud. You stupid person. Look, I do not support indiscriminate murder, all right? But let's not pretend that every life has value. Let's not pretend, and given what you've seen of the world, let's not pretend that there aren't people that we're all better off with if they're gone. Oh, sure, that's what prison is for. Yeah, Kingpin's in prison. How's that working out for you?
Let me add this. So they've now wrapped up the 5 seasons that they initially intended to go with leading up to the Defenders.
They actually finished filming the Defenders, too.
Well, I mean, Aaron.
Okay.
But the point that I'm trying to get towards is, who knew whether or not this was going to work with Netflix? I mean, a pretty good bet that it was. Marvel is pretty competent in terms of putting out their products, but you never knew if this was really going to work. And so they started off with, look, here's 4 characters that we can make shows out of that are never going to make it to the movies anyway. So let's see how this works, and we'll go from there. And it's been a wild success, even with the ratings such as they are for Iron Fist. They've still all been successful for Netflix. And Netflix is now hot for more content from Marvel. So, of course, with the advent of the Punisher and the Punisher being so popular, especially in the second season of Daredevil, now the Punisher's getting his own show. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be late this year. The reason I bring that up is I don't know how well a Punisher show is going to work if one of your overarching thematic established themes is the heroes don't kill. The Punisher kills. That's what he does. We just went through this with Wolverine. I don't know if you can do 13 episodes of a guy murdering people with guns.
You have to craft a mystery story for the Punisher to kind of solve. That's how that has to be. Because otherwise, and look, I'm all for violence and murder in my entertainment. I really am. I am 100% down with that. And again, not all the time, but frequently. Like, I can't tell you how much I cheered when Jessica Jones actually killed the Purple Man. Like, yes, someone gets it.
More murder.
This won't stop. He won't go away. He won't be brought to justice. He won't be in prison. Look at all these things that, our current society, our societal morals and cultural norms with dealing with people who exist beyond the law, such as we have come to define it, is great for everyone who isn't superpowered.
Right. Like,
right, no, you really should just kill some of these people.
Moving right along, sir. The other details of this episode, which are important here, is you have sort of a breakdown in the relationship between Ward and Joy, who, Joy wants to fight being thrown off the boat, but Ward doesn't. Ward just wants to go. Ward tries to accept a severance package, but Joy's already told him to shove it up their ass. And here we have an Arrow moment. Now, I just finished watching season 2 of Arrow, and a big thing about that was the sister being ever so pissed that she keeps being lied to the point where she disowns the family and goes into the arms of one of the season 1 villain, Marvin Martian or Merlin or whatever the fuck his name, Malcolm Merlin.
Sucks. Okay, move on with your point.
All right, easy. It's hardly the issue here. Malcolm Merlin. But, like, her whole thing is, you cheated, you lied, you said that you love me. And we have kind of that with Joy here, too, where it's just like, would everyone stop fucking lying to me, either by omission or otherwise? Fuck.
I don't, again, like, and every time Ward's like, no, really, this is for your own good. I don't need you to protect me. Our father's a murder zombie who was resurrected by mystical ninjas who are draining people of their blood, selling heroin, and want to destroy the city. Trust me just a little bit. You don't want in on this.
Right. Continue to wear your weirdly fitting pantsuits and let's just move on with life. So, Ward's going to tell her about, again, the recently deceased zombie that is their father. But he's having hallucinations, so he changes his mind.
Well, and we didn't touch on this specifically, but the man takes, again, there's a little bit of drug abuse going on, like, because he's a high-powered business executive, don't you see? And they all do drugs and booze and.
Hey, man, I don't know about you, but opiates get me through my day. Just kidding. It's more steroids.
But my point being, he stops for a brief moment, but winds up, jonesing, and he takes some of the synthetic heroin, which is really the perfect drug. They go into great detail about how it actually blocks absorption into the liver, so you don't develop a tolerance for it, which is actually really stupid because the liver purifies and prevents you from toxic shock.
Okay, Mr. Wizard.
And it's potent. And in heroin, most potent drug there is, basically. And we've upped the addiction rate. And you will never actually overdose because you will never develop the tolerance that requires you to take more and more and more and more. So, hey, this is the MacGuffin of all narcotics, all right? And he takes some of it because he doesn't know any better, and he is detoxing through the next 4 episodes. Is him dealing with the after effects of, boy, that was a poor life decision I made right there.
All right, episode 9. This is where we have the Madame Gao show. I enjoyed her character. I enjoy someone.
She is the best thing about this series, about this particular season of television.
Yeah, really. I mean, first of all, the way she walks and how she tells stories, she kind of reminds me of an Asian version of my grandmother, my Italian grandmother, God rest her soul. She's just there's this sweet old lady walking with a cane and talking in riddles. You know, I got a kick out of Madame Gao. I enjoyed her, and she really the actress should be applauded. She really gets to turn up the hamminess in this episode. She has the perfect combination of sweetness and smarminess. You know, you don't want to hate her, but she's a terrible human being, and she's fucking with these people, and so you kind of have to. But yeah, she's a fun character.
Like this woman, but you can't quite look away. She's just so darn charming.
Yeah, she really is. She's got a 10+ charisma for all you D&D nerds out there. Anyway,
if we're making D&D jokes, can I at least say that I couldn't help but watching Ward and Joy and going, so this is what evil corporate Vax and Vex look like.
Sure.
Critical Role joke for all of you out there.
Anyway, so they try to do truth serum on her, and she takes him for a ride. But the big reveal here is that Colleen got poisoned when she was in China, so she's about to die. So they call Bakudo, and Bakudo says, "Hey, you've got the Iron Fist. Why don't you fucking use it to, burn the poison out of her, dipshit?" And Danny goes, "Oh, I thought this was just for punching." He was like, "Nope, you're a terrible Iron Fist." So,
he actually has this moment. Oh, you didn't learn that. Great.
By the way, there's a few moments of this that I just was tickled beyond belief.
I couldn't help but look at Bakudo through the next 40 minutes of him and Danny interacting and go, "You're a really terrible Emperor Palpatine. I will complete your training."
It's actually Davos who has a great line. And I think it's the next episode when he's saving Danny from the compound. He was like, "You are the worst Iron Fist ever."
Yeah, he does actually tell him that. And if Davos wasn't such a clingy bitch.
I mean, what a way to introduce that character with a great line like that. In any case, so he teaches Danny how to save her, and that's fine. And the hand, Bakudo's version of the hand shows up. They take Madame Gao away. We also get the reveal that Harold, through whatever alchemy they use to resurrect him, every time he dies, it comes back.
Permanent effect.
He becomes a little crazier to the point where he's going to become just an unstoppable madman, which of course leads to him coming back to life. He rises from the muck and mire. Is this the one where he?
I don't know.
Yes, he does. He arises from the muck and mire. He goes back. He finally gets his head together. This is the episode where he kills Kyle.
with an ice cream scoop.
My God.
That was great.
That really was. It was very graphic, but it was very suiting. And I tell you, I sympathize with Harold, and I'll tell you why. Here he's actually said, he actually goes to the thing of, like, I went through the trouble of getting you all this ice cream, and all you do is complain. Boy, have I been there.
Yeah.
And boy, have I wanted to hit somebody with an ice cream scoop.
And Jesus if you're dealing with the impulse control issues, and again, like, your soul gets left behind each time you come back from this process, suddenly this you've been dealing with ungrateful children from your perspective, and now you got this whiny assistant who, just plain vanilla is fine with me, and you could almost see it on his face during that scene. Like, I went to the best damn shop, and I got every flavor except vanilla. And that
you ungrateful cur.
The look on his face for just a minute before he grabs that ice cream scoop and goes, "Okay, that's it."
Yeah, you can see where Harold is coming from.
Well, that's kind of the thing about a lot of his issues, the issues that come about from his, again, the resurrection process, whereby your humanity is left behind slowly but surely. It starts out as just a natural extension of very human perspectives.
Right.
Like, I want my son to succeed. Well, he's not doing what I tell him to. Smack. Do what I tell you to do.
Dummy.
No, we had a moment. I got you this ice cream. Oh, you got the what? I want this flavor and preferably soy. And you little son of a.
You
so
ungrateful
it all
bitch.
makes sense from an emotional standpoint. This is a guy without impulse control.
Yeah, this is
basically how it goes.
We reviewed stuff in the past where like the villain just does villain things seemingly out of nowhere, and you and I have just sort of rolled our eyes at it. What Harold is doing makes sense and is consistent in the world they've created.
I mean, don't get me wrong, that escalated real quick, but
well, again, you keep coming back to life. You're going to lose a lot of your patience in the meantime. Episode 10, Black Tiger Steals Heart. Here's where we are on the college campus of the Hand.
It's a cult. This is Jonestown, right?
They seem to be just outside of the city. This looks like they're either in like fucking New Paltz or something.
There's no specific like area given for that, because I imagine at any point if someone during the writing of this episode went, hey, there's nowhere in New York that actually looks like this.
No, it's definitely outside of the city. And I'm trying to. There's just outside of the Bronx. There's an area of upstate New York that a lot of people live in and commute back into. And I'm trying to remember the name of it now. Or it's Long Island, and it looked like they shot it at like Hofstra University. You can absolutely believe that someone would have a compound.
By the way,
what?
Hofstra, also kind of a cult.
Oh, shut up. It's a fine university. I almost went there, but I was a dummy and didn't. Went to Pittsburgh instead. That's a whole other story. In any case,
yeah, that one's on you.
Yup. I am dumb. DUM. Anywho, you can absolutely believe that there would be this sort of woody college campus looking area just outside of the city. There's plenty of, like, people think of New York City, they think of Manhattan, but there's even places in Queens and Brooklyn that are woody and suburban-ish looking. They're not every place in the five boroughs of New York is just filled to the brim with skyscrapers. That's Manhattan, and it's a small island. In any case, you have a situation here where Bakudo sort of reveals, his evil plot, which is to end the Trumpverse, to end the post-Trump world, and he wants the Iron Fist to do it. And this is where Colleen reveals that, oh, by the way, you've been rescued by the Hand, but this version of the Hand is good. And Danny says there is no such thing as a good hand. Ain't no good hand like a dead hand.
Well, he's not wrong.
And so, and then he realizes that the Hand is conducting mass surveillance, and he goes all berserker, crazy, throws a giant tantrum. He ends up in a fight with Bakudo and, all the students, at which point he is saved by Davos, who says you are the worst Iron Fist ever. And they fight their way out with a bit of help from Colleen, who finally opens the gate so they can leave. On the other side of the world, Harold kills the Wilkins, who is the guy that, the leader of the people that threw the Meachums off the bus.
He's a plot point. He's not relevant.
Joy manages to convince the board to reinstate the Meachums and Rand. Harold denies his involvement in Wilkins' death to her, and that's the end of the episode.
I actually liked the wordplay he does there, because she asks him, did you have him killed? And he says, no, I did not have him killed. It's a stupid question.
I did it myself.
Because, he didn't know. I shot him myself. He wasn't actually lying.
Right. It's a lie by omission, but, technically not a lie. I mean, I don't want to belabor this because I do want to read a couple of the Rotten reviews and then get this thing up, hopefully before midnight. But either way, it's a fine episode. A lot of twists and turns there, a lot of melodrama between Colleen and Danny. I'm actually surprised Danny didn't forgive her. There wasn't a little bit more to that. He pretty much stuck to his guns. He wasn't, all wimpy about it and love struck. It was, hey, I have a mission here, and you are part of that mission now by your own admission, and I will not be deterred. And you cannot convince me otherwise with your feminine ways. So, interesting way to go. Episode 11, lead horse back to stable. Rand tells Davos that they are not going back to Kunlun until the hand is destroyed, since that is the mission. They go to Claire's. There was a lot of Davos and Claire in this episode, and I actually like their exchanges. And the guy playing Davos is really good. He has they gave him some real fun things to do. He has a lot of stranger in a strange land kind of stuff going on. Like eating the pizza, like the first initial reaction is just like the food of this world.
What passes for food in this world is poison to both body and soul.
Right. And then later on he's eating the pizza, like, well, it's not terrible. He's eating it all wrong. It's just limp in his hand. It's awesome. But a lot of philosophical exchanges between Claire and Davos, and after you've had a couple of episodes of just nothing but action, it was kind of nice to see him slow it down a bit and actually have the characters interact in a meaningful way. Beyond that, this is where Joy starts to figure out that Bakudo is stealing money from Rand Enterprises. So they start to mix the plot threads together to weave a cohesive narrative. The hand captures Colleen, and Bakudo decides to use her for the revival.
The bloodletting.
Yep. Outside the compound, Rand and Davos wait for Bakudo. Davos continues questioning Rand's motives for staying in New York. Joy freezes the account. Wing frees herself and escapes, spotted by Rand, who rushes inside and calms her, and Davos learns that they are romantically involved. Again, the best parts of this, I think, for me, were the Claire-Davos interactions. Anything to add?
Nah, not really.
Moving on. Episode 12, and here we are quickly running towards the glorious conclusion. Bar the Big Boss. So, Ward gets out of the hospital and goes to the penthouse, holding a gun and demanding Harold let him kiss. Yes, we have a lot of twists and turns here. Demanding Harold to let him.
This is where we get, did the FBI know the CIA was setting them up with the NSA?
Yeah. Bakudo and his operatives arrive with the former calling Rand, shooting Joy right in the belly. Because hey, a gut shot hurts like hell, but you won't die from it. Not for a while at least. We learned that in Reservoir Dogs.
Depends on depends on the shot location. I'm so sick of okay, low on the outside, you got to get right above the hip. Otherwise, there's some serious blood vessels around the kidneys that you're monkeying with.
Thank you, Mr. Wizard. Shooting Joy and giving him a half an hour to arrive at the penthouse in order to save the trio. He gets there in the ta-da nick of time.
Like you do.
Yep. The hand locks Rand and takes him to the lobby, where Rand uses the fist to free himself, just as Davos and Wing attack, and we have a giant fight scene. Wing Davos ends up, I think, theoretically killing Bakudo, but then Bakudo suddenly mysteriously disappears.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yep. The latter engages Davos and overpowers him, stating that he wishes to be both Rand and the Iron Fist. Davos departs and the pair find Bakudo's body gone. Okay, yeah. So this is where you have the falling out between Danny and Davos. Where again we're back to
Why did you leave me and steal what I wanted?
Well, the other side of that is Danny going, there has to be more to me than the living weapon. I can't just live as a weapon. I am also Danny Rand. There are two sides to me. I am both Bruce Wayne and Batman, and I have to coexist. I can't just be one. His tale is old as time. All hail the Mouse King. Anywho, Davos leaves, brokenhearted. Where do broken hearts go? Harold and Ward take Joy to the hospital. Rand and Wing return to the dojo. The next day, Ward texts Rand, alerting him that Harold has framed him for bearing drugs. The dojo is attacked by DEA agents, and Rand and Colleen go into the escape. Sheets to the wind.
They go into the woods to live deliberately.
Yes, it would have been funnier if they had. All right. Our glorious conclusion, and I'm not just going to read through the wiki. Basically, you have the final confrontation between old mad Harold, who has come back to take over Rand Enterprises. He's mad, I tell you, mad. This ends with a fight between him and Danny, and just short of killing him, Ward shows up and shoots him, and fucking Harold goes off the building. He's cremated. That's the end of that. he ends up like within like 30 seconds getting the whole thing is that they have to steal back the original documents off the laptop or the tablet or whatever that can exonerate Danny, which they do. But that's basically just a setup for
That's
this
their
whole
excuse for, hey, let's
climactic fight scene. Yeah, exactly. Gosh. Yeah, then we go to the bistro where Batman and Catwoman are also hanging out, and that's where
Madame Gao is like manipulating the whole thing somehow into getting her way.
Madame Gao, yes, Madame Gao is within earshot of this whole thing. Yes, and this is where they, you know, what do we do now that we've defeated the Hand? Bakuto is in the wind. Ward is running Rand. The world is continuing to turn every season. What do we do now? And he decides, well, I'm going back to Kunlun where you know, to finish my training so that I can defeat Darth Vader. And then
I have to become a Jedi, you see.
And so, as we said before, Kunlun has gone on walkabout. Which, you know, here's the thing. They say that, and maybe you can make sense of this for me, but they say that, you know, every 15 years the path is open to Kunlun through the Himalayas. And Davos kept telling him, "Hey, we got to get back. We're gonna miss the boat here. We're gonna, you know, the path will be blocked." So is it that Kunlun went on walkabout for some weird reason, or just the as he said was going to happen, the path is gone?
I don't know. I mean, I imagine it's just the path is gone, but maybe there's some. Again, maybe I imagine that, you know, as a guy who lived there, maybe it's more. Okay, it should be here. And even if the path is closed, like if the path is closed, we should not be able to even get to this point.
The gate. Well, here's what the wiki says. Let's move on. Rand and Wing arrive at the gate. Okay, so right there, you're right. It seems it's gone on walkabout. But find it destroyed and surrounded by, it's actually not Kunlun monks, but actual Hand members. And Kunlun is missing. So yes, Kunlun got up and ran away.
It's one of the 7 capitals of heaven. I imagine it's not constrained by our terrestrial notions of location.
I think it turned. I think much like Ego the Living Planet, it turned into a famous actor from an '80s kung fu movie. Hi, Kurt Russell, and is actually in New York looking for Danny.
See, I was going to go with the collector has taken it and turned it into a small bottle. There's someone in the DC universe like has the last city of Krypton shrunk down and existing in a bottle on his spaceship.
Mitzoplex or something. All right.
No, it's not that. It's someone who Superman fights on occasion. I can't remember who it is, but.
All right. Overall, I gave it 4 stars on Rotten Tomatoes. I really enjoyed Iron Fist. I was actively intrigued by the story. As I said before, I enjoyed the flip-flopping nature of who is bad and who is good. Nobody was so overly mustache-twirly and villainous that, you know, it bordered on cartoony. I thought Finn Jones's portrayal of an emotionally stunted but powerful superhero was spot on. I thought the supporting cast, you know, nobody was so bad at their job that it took me out of the show. You know, is it perfect? No. But, you know, typically no show on television really is, for the most part. I thought it fit well in the Marvel Netflix verse that they've created with 2 seasons of Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage. And I'm excited to see what they do with Sigourney Weaver in The Defenders. Why don't you give me 50 words here on your feeling here, and then we'll get into... Then just start screaming no at me so that we can read Rotten Tomatoes reviews. I'm
not screaming no at you. I think you're a little generous with your stars, but I think I wound up at... Like, I imagine I would have fallen like 3 or so, 3.5. The acting is all fine. My biggest gripe, and this is, again, let me reiterate this. This is personal. This is not necessarily objective in many senses. This is another area, much like with Luke Cage. I have consumed enough fiction, both, you know, written and, you know, movies, television, literature, whatever, in that space, that deal with that type of material that I know what's coming. And again, the conspiracy theory, high-end financial crap is yet another area where I have consumed a substantial amount of material. So when we get about like 4 or 5 episodes into it, I went, okay, so they're all screwing with Danny, and he's the only halfway decent human here. And I think one of the main problems a lot of reviewers had with this was they're not used to having to view a show like this with that level of paranoia. And you as the viewer have to be paranoid about this if you're watching something along this level. Like, no, nobody's telling you the truth. Everyone is screwing with you. And you have to recognize that and go along with it. And that's fine. But if you're not used to it, if you're used to the, Iron Man motif of, okay, good guy good, bad, we fight, and personal developments along the way, then yeah, this is going to seem really weird to you. But for anyone who's consumed material in this genre, this specific genre of, again, kind of corporate espionage, which is the theme behind it much more so than it's done in a kung fu style. But if you look at the narrative, it's not very kung fu and is, again, much more high-level conspiracy, corporate espionage stuff. Then yeah, if you've consumed that type of material, there's no one you can trust outside of the main character. Absolutely no one. And if you're not prepared for that, then again, it feels weird. If you are, then again, it gets to a point where, okay, I know exactly what's coming, but fair enough, let's just see how it's executed. And it's executed well. It's not perfect, but it's done well enough.
All right, are you ready?
No, but that's never stopped you before.
Adam Gavitt of The Guardian. Right now, the show is in danger of... Now, a lot of these are based on just the first 6 episodes in the interest of fairness. Right now, the show is in danger of becoming the Jar Jar Binks of the Marvel Netflix franchise.
Oh, that's
without the comedy
crap.
moments. 2 out of 5,
Jar Jar's not funny. Well, let's start there. Your assessment of Jar Jar in and of itself is fundamentally inaccurate. Second, Jar Jar was a miserable failure, not just because he was attempted comic relief when it wasn't necessary. He was poorly acted, he was poorly conceived, he was poorly animated, and was so incongruous with the series as a whole that he stood out like a sore thumb.
In defense of Jar Jar Binks, he was also a master of drunken boxing.
No.
I love those videos on YouTube. They're claiming Jar Jar's like a master Jedi. It's great.
Anyway, your assessment is inaccurate in this case because whether you liked this series or not, whether you think there were issues with this series or not, and one is completely up to preference, and the other is, yeah, there are issues. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. It still feels like it fits within the universe they have crafted for these characters. To pretend otherwise simply because it's not to your personal taste is asinine.
Kevin Fitzpatrick of Screen Crush. This is an origin story of a man stranded in the mystical world, mastering martial arts, and fighting an actual freaking dragon named Shao Lao the Undying. Why are we stuck with Batman Begins by way of Suits? Suits being a show on USA Network.
Yeah, Suits is not good. It's every first of all, Suits is every USA Network show ever. Right? Let's be clear about that. Second, no, this is not Batman Begins. This is not really an origin story in the traditional sense of the word. This is not how he becomes the Iron Fist. We meet him and he is the Iron Fist. This is about his reintroduction into society and elements of his character being built. Not, well, this is how he became superpowered. Honestly, I would have liked more of that. I mean, there's a lot about Danny Rand's journey, including, well, why did you leave, that goes unanswered.
Right.
I mean, that's it. This is not again, Daredevil's an origin story, season 1. It's the beginning of him being Daredevil. But that's the only one. The others are very deliberately character introductions, but not origins as such.
Well, you get Luke Cage's origin pretty much in full.
Hey, but he's already that way. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's done through flashback. Like, that's more Arrow, in the way that they do his, it's like you have a contemporary story, but then you have his origin is told through flashback periodically, which is fine.
Okay, generally. Yeah, it's not, again, it's not Man of Steel or Batman Begins or
Green Lantern.
Let's not discuss that movie. I've never seen it. I've seen like 3 screen caps, and it hurts my eyes just to look at it.
Okay. In the interest of time, let's move this on. Trent Moore of Paste Magazine. For viewers who've grown accustomed to the genre-defying tales of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, Iron Fist feels like a paint-by-numbers project trying to check the right boxes in time for the Defenders, and that's just not good enough anymore.
Well, that's an appropriately admirable sentiment, which I can generally get behind more often than not, so fair. However, if you bothered listening to our reviews, anyone else out there, remember what I said about Luke Cage like 5 minutes ago, how I saw it all coming? It's because it does not defy the genre. It takes the superhero and places it into urban crime drama, which is fine. I'm not going to complain about that. But if you look at it as urban crime drama, not superhero movie, it's very paint by numbers. It's just we haven't seen urban crime drama on that level done with superheroes yet. So it feels fresh to people who aren't making the necessary connections.
I'm going to skip down and then go back to some of these top critics that I want to read. But this one caught my eye, and I thought this would be a get 'em WInfree moment, and I wanted to get to it real quick. Morgan Jeffrey of Digital Spy says, for a show about a kung fu expert, Iron Fist is also remarkably action light.
Okay, I mean, if we were to clock up the number of minutes spent in action sequences and the number of minutes spent in other endeavors, we'd probably be about 50-50. I feel like that's about accurate. Maybe a little bit, maybe it leans a little more towards the dramatic, but we're not dealing with a huge deficit here. The fact that you can't remember some of the action sequences is a wholly different complaint. If that's your perspective, like, no, there's a serious problem with the action being unmemorable. Okay, that's a fair note. That really is. To a degree, it's largely personal. What do you remember? But at the same time, like, okay, this feels a bit generic. Okay, again, that's fair. But you're like, no, it's action light. This is quantifiable. All right? Like, you shouldn't be making complaints about quantifiable things if you're not prepared to support them with, okay, we spent, there's, 13 episodes. If we averaged out, say they're an hour apiece. So there's 13 hours of content. 7 of it was spent on action. 6 of it was spent on dialogue. Hypothetically. If you have, like, that's a reasonable ratio, but if you have a number, like, okay, I mean, like, look, Jessica Jones, very light on action, which is fine. It was supposed to be. Consequently, it's not a fair criticism to tell a show that is not intended to be action heavy that you're light on action. But it's also the one point when you can kind of go, okay, here, again, quantifiable data. No, I don't feel that's an accurate statement, much less criticism.
Jack Shepherd of The Independent UK. Unlike the equally arrogant Tony Stark, Bruce Wayne, or Stephen Strange, Danny has no redeeming features.
Oh, shut up.
The audience is given no reason to like this unfunny hero. We're just expected to because he's the titular character. Yup.
He's unfunny. He's not supposed to be. This is not a comedy. He's not a wisecracker. Tony Stark is a wise ass. All right, whatever else he is.
There is an element of the critics out there that just want every superhero to be Iron Man. They want every superhero movie to be Iron Man.
Which is equally stupid.
Yeah. Alex Abad Santos of Vox. Ugh. This series takes everything good Marvel has done, takes it on a joyride, then returns it scratched, bruised, and smelling like patchouli and broken promises. After this 13-hour slog, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed.
Okay, you're positing that one entry, even if you didn't care for it, was able to undo the last, 10 years worth of goodwill? I mean, come on. This isn't that bad. Even if you don't like it, which, again, is fair, and it's not perfect, this is not so bad that the Marvel brand is irreparably damaged, all right?
I think this he just hit upon Green a funny Lantern, sentence.
Which was so bad that DC was damaged.
I think he just hit upon a funny sentence to him and was like, I'm running with it, and I don't have an editor.
Yeah.
Danette Chavez of the AV Club. Top critic, buddy. Here we go. This is the creme de la creme, best of the best. The series does little to transcend the half-hearted rock'em sock'em action. It just adheres to the formula, hitting familiar beats and telling the all-too-familiar story of the prodigal presumed dead son. Look, before you get into this, there is, I know, a strong impulse to compare this to Arrow, but I just watched the first season of Arrow. Number one, Oliver Queen and Danny Rand are not written in anywhere near the same way. They also don't have anywhere near the same story. Oliver didn't find a hidden island, and in another dimension. He found an island occupied by the Chinese, for fuck's sake. Okay, and a veteran from Australia, and he just got caught up in this weird mix of things that was happening. He also went as an adult, a spoiled adult, but an adult. Here, and with Danny, you have him as a kid who basically nearly dies in the snow of the Himalayas and is saved by monks who live in a mystical city and can't leave because the way is blocked. That I get the impulse to compare the two, but they're really not the same, and the devil is in the details. Oliver comes back a hardened man, after having lived a spoiled silver spoon lifestyle. Danny was traumatized, okay, as a child, and turned into basically an assassin, and he's trying to struggle with the fact that that was not what he ever wanted to be. Oliver came back with a mission to set his city on fire and save it from whatever the fuck his father was doing at the time. They're not the same. And it's like, it's just lazy to sit there and go, oh, Arrow and Danny and Batman are all the same guys. And I don't even want to get into the differences in Batman and both of those guys. But go ahead, just real quick. You want to respond to this idiot, Danette Chavez?
Yeah. Mark is right about all of that. Like, if you're not paying you have to actually pay attention. You can't just coast. You can't watch 3 different things at the same time and pretend that your analysis is going to be accurate. All right? You have to actually pay attention. B, you are fundamentally wrong about it doesn't deviate from beat 'em up. Really, it really does. Like, what did Mark and I talk about for the last, hour and a half? The character development. Those are what defines this, the moments between the action. There's a lot about this show that defies, I want to see the superhero punching things, because you don't get a whole lot of it. And even when you do, that is generally the less interesting portion of the show. This doesn't play into convention, and it is, apart from billionaire prodigal returns after absence, bears no resemblance to any of the other characters you tried to mention.
It's not even that similar to Daredevil. It bears the most similarity to Daredevil, but it's still a different story.
Yeah, in so many ways. Daredevil has a clear villain that he tries to oppose, and he's got his own reasons for it, which are multifaceted and layered, and not just, boy, raised by a cult, or I lived on an island, or I saw my parents gunned down.
Abraham Reichman of the New York Magazine, or Vulture, top critic, best of the best, creme de la creme. It may have seemed fine to crank out another Marvel Netflix show that feels like the brand's past outings, but the critical drubbing that Iron Fist has received is in no small part due to the fact that it's so stale and unoriginal. Get 'em.
Again, if you don't like it, fine. If you think there are problems, fine. There are problems here. A lot of the acting is, I don't want to say bad, but it's very either subtle, so subtle that it's very easy to miss, even if you're paying attention, or elements of it feel very cut out. Again, you've got, and they play around with it a little bit. It's a cardboard cutout that's painted well, is kind of how some of the characters feel. And if that's a fair criticism. But this is again, you're dealing with a very different character here from any of the previous Marvel, certainly the Netflix series. Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with someone who has no idea how to interact with the world, all right? Who's trying to find himself in the wake of, well, you will be the Iron Fist, and you will stand guard at the gates of Kunlun from now until you die of old age, doing nothing because no one knows how to find it.
Yeah, I will say this. One of the things that lacks in the whole Davos-Danny relationship is I wanted Davos to sort of explain what the threat was. You have a hidden city that trips dimensions. Why do you need a guard? Why does God need a starship? And you never really get a sense of what could possibly be attacking the city. But
there's also a severe lack of explanation about the Hand and their motivation and what they're doing. And this is the series that should have done it. Let's be very clear about that. Okay, Luke Cage doesn't get into it because he doesn't deal with them. Fine. Daredevil has other things he's dealing with. His relationship with Stick and the Punisher running around murdering people. But here you have like huge segments of this show where Danny is talking with, the fingers, the actual fingers of the Hand. And we don't get anything even approaching legitimate exposition. And I understand you don't want to give it all away because they're going to be the primary antagonist for the Defenders. But at this point, there's not even enough knowledge to generate the impetus to get the Defenders together to fight them.
All right.
Come on. What's Luke Cage going to say? They get him out of prison. Okay, we got to fight the Hand. The what? Hand. Mystical ninjas. Why? They're doing bad stuff. What? Well, we don't know.
Just got out of prison. I want to go back to cutting hair.
I got a barbershop to reopen. Or, Jessica, like, we got to fight the Hand. No. I'd rather get drunk. Like, no. Do you not understand how much I hate you all right now just for being in my personal space?
Would anyone care for a drink? All right. Jonathan L. Fisher of Slate Magazine. Good old Slate. They've always got a point to make. This is a top critic. Robert
if only it wasn't on the top of their head.
I want you to understand what I'm about to tell you here is that Jonathan L. Fisher is a top critic, well respected in the field of criticism. Do you understand that? This is the pride of the field right here. And this man says, who is professional, who is paid in money to write what I am about to read to you. I can think of no reason Iron Fist would have been worse off for giving the part to an Asian actor. I also have no hope that would have made this show comprehensible or exciting.
Really? Okay, let's start with the basics. You couldn't comprehend a story about a man returning to his home city after a 15-year absence wherein he was, brutally trained and trying to recover his life. You've never had to uproot and refind yourself. You have no issues with your personal identity, which is fine. You might not be sentient enough to actually comprehend things beyond your own immediate sphere of, ouch, this is hot. I can think of no way it would have been hurt by giving it to an Asian actor. Danny Rand has... I need to yell about this. And this seems a good enough segue as any.
You're welcome.
Danny Rand has always been white. His debut way back in 1974, or whatever it was. He was a white guy obsessed with Kung Fu. Danny Rand is a white guy. He has never been Asian of any variety. Everyone's saying this is whitewashing. You're too stupid to actually Google Danny Rand, okay? Well, let's just comprehend for one moment your own stupidity, laziness, and general largesse. I see this. I am outraged. I will tweet instead of research.
Put it on pause for a second. Let's compare this without getting into the content, but let's compare this to a different casting issue of Johnny Storm, who was casted by Michael something or other. What's the fucking actor's name?
It was the good old four stick, that unequivocal waste of space and time.
They made Johnny Storm black, who has also been traditionally white. Here's the difference. It didn't matter that Johnny Storm was black. Johnny Storm was not defined in any way by his race. The characters were created in the 60s, I believe. This is, the Fantastic Four. It was white characters for a mostly white audience in a mostly white genre. It made sense that they'd be white. But if years later you want to be inclusive and change up the races, considering the Fantastic Four has always been about sci-fi and adventure and family, you can do that. You can make the characters Chinese or black or whatever, and it doesn't change anything because their race was never part of their character. Race was a part of Iron Fist's character. The fact that he was, a white man trapped in the Himalayas and raised by Asian monks is the very fiber of his character. He's an outsider. He never belonged there.
And everyone constantly tells him that.
Yes. So let's flip this on his head. Let's say it's a Chinese family, right, who happens to have been living in America, and it's the same story, but they're Chinese instead of white. At least he's the right race. He may not have been part of the original Kunlun population, but at least he's from the right continent originally. At least his family was. You can't really go with, you could say, well, you American, you're not really one of us. It doesn't quite send the strongest of messages. And here's the thing. The fact that Danny is such an outsider, that he's Caucasian, he's rich, he's this, that, and the other thing, makes his relationship with Davos that much more intriguing in the sense that here you have this rich white boy that stole Davos's, perceived birthright. It's less effective the more they have in common. It's more effective the least they have in common.
Yeah, look, critics like this are going to be cheering for Davos when he tries to murder Danny Rand in the next series because he will be reclaiming his ethnic heritage from the white man's cultural appropriation. All right? That's the kind of person you are.
Anything else on this?
Apart from the fact that guy's a moron who should be encouraged to play in traffic, no.
All right, last one. Last two, and then I'm going to cut this off. Rob Sheffield of Rolling Stone, top critic. Iron Fist hero can't seem to muster any inner turmoil.
For the love of.
Beyond the occasional harsh vibe. Oh, Rolling Stone.
Okay, hang on.
Let me finish the
Okay.
quote here. there doesn't seem to be much of anything going on in his skull. His mystical Zen quotes go over like a Wayne's World setup minus the punchline. I would love to get some sales figures on Rolling Stone to see if they're actually still selling that magazine to anyone.
Okay. The fact that he does not do his emotional turmoil through gradients is deliberate, you moron. I don't know if you're just so conditioned to think that great acting must be by degrees that you can't possibly conceive of someone with an emotional disorder that leads them to violent eruptions, like he has, like other people have. This is, again, he is fighting to contain rage, trauma, outside, again, angst at the world. He's fighting constantly to keep that centered, as, most Zen masters do. And he is losing that battle because he has in no way, shape, form, or fashion actually processed the emotions that he's trying to deal with. He is simply stuffing them down. Whereas, true Zen masters or Chi masters understand the need for processing, healing, and proper balance. He is so far out of balance that when he is, theoretically flat and placid, he looks like a completely different person from when he is actually experiencing an emotion. I mean, did you think that, various Spock interpretations were bad too? Because that's kind of what we've got here.
All right, last one. Brian Truitt of USA Today. Top critic. Danny's not particularly likable. Heaven forbid.
What is it again with this crap? Hang on. First of all, what's likable? All right, let's start off with that. Danny's perfectly likable. He's just he's just a fish out of water, a little bit bumbling.
But I mean, he's not. But even if he was unlikable,
even
Pat and I talked about this with the two Dennis Leary shows, Rescue Me and Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, where it's perfectly okay to have an unlikable character as your lead. You just have to set them up with characters that are, appealing or interesting for him to bounce off of.
Yeah, I'm going to throw out a couple of characters here that were leads and were not especially likable.
Walter White.
Tony Soprano.
McNulty.
And look, The Wire. Let's just say the cast.
Baltimore.
95% of Oz. All right.
Fucking Michael Chiklis' character on The Shield. Michael Chiklis' character on Gotham.
Look, there's a lot of characters that have been leads that have been on the unlikable side, if not outright villainous.
I was going to say wholly detestable.
I mean, that's not like any kind of criticism whatsoever.
In this particular
instance,
they can't all be The Rock from Ballers. Okay, it can't all be perfectly charismatic, likable people having a rough go of it.
Really, I think we'd all be better off if every major character from every television series was The Rock, but I digress.
From Ballers? Okay.
No. Doesn't have to be from that show. It's like
The Rock.
If The Rock were cast in every major television role.
Okay. Danny's not particularly likable. He annoyingly mansplains kung fu to sword-wielding sensei.
No. Hang on.
No.
Mansplain?
Let me finish.
Sorry.
He annoyingly mansplains kung fu to sword-wielding sensei Colleen Wing, who regularly saves his behind, except for the time she was poisoned. And he, like many of the main players, is undermined by poor characterization. 1.5 out of 4 stars. And I'm tapping out. I'm done with this.
Oh, he mansplains. Well, what exactly is mansplaining, you hack? No, I don't like it when men explain things to women. I think it reinforces negative gender roles. He's the kung fu master. Yeah, he's going to explain how it works to people. No, I do this. Well, okay, how does it work? I do this. Boy, you're really bad at this, aren't you?
Yeah.
No.
God forbid there be exposition in a story.
Yeah. And again, she saves him. So if you're complaining about traditional gender roles, the fact that Colleen does, in fact, pull his ass out of the fire once or twice should at a minimum negate your point, even if it was a real point, which, again, it's not.
I think we're done here.
These people get paid for this.
I know. It's horrible.
If you happen, anyone out there who knows that guy, I want you to fill a water balloon with, what was it?
Urine?
No, that's like construed as various forms of bioterrorism and assault. I don't wish to suggest something like that. That'll get you in real trouble.
Well, then you'll just hide the bodies.
As we already discussed, it's not actually that easy. No, you fill it with like old milk.
Ugh.
All right? Or crack a few old eggs into it. And then throw that at this guy. All right? That's how he is so bad at his job. If you happen to have a pet skunk that hasn't been deglanded, point it at him. All right? That's what this guy deserves.
All right. That, folks, is how we're gonna end this podcast. A couple of quick plugs. Are you doing a show Sunday, or is it off because of whatever?
We're off this Sunday. There's nothing really to talk about.
Alrighty. If you're listening to this live on YouTube, and I don't think you are because I don't see any viewers, well, this show will get reposted and everything will kind of shift over. And then we'll pick up the regular schedule on Monday. But back in the old archives, we did our source material, the first part of Iron Fist, the Living Weapon Rage, on Monday, and then we did a little bit on the show, just sort of expectations or whatever. Robert and I reviewed Beauty and the Beast, All Hail the Mouse, King of Cinema. Metal Hammer of Doom had a mess around, and then we got into Obituary, their self-titled album Obituary. Next week, we will continue with our Iron Fist, the Living Weapon Redemption coverage on source material. Robert and I will review the new Power Rangers movie. Currently, I think is not getting good reviews.
I'm just booing it because I can.
Metal Hammer of Doom finally gets to review Steel Panther, Lower the Bar. Should be the best album of the year, except for Body Count. Body Count's in the house.
It's nice when you don't have to worry about how to dispose of the bodies like Ice-T, because he's Ice-T.
He did not shoot the bitch.
So I've been led to believe, at least.
And then we're back for another TV party. 8 episodes of Legion. What a fine show this has been. It's been Jim Dandy. We've enjoyed it. It's going to be me, Josh Calandros, Ronnie Adams, possibly Jesse Starcher. We're having fun with this. We've been talking about it on our little messenger. We're going to do a show about it. Have a nice conversation. Hopefully Blog Talk Radio doesn't fuck us.
It will.
And then,
let's be clear. It'll drop at least 3 of you throughout the course of that show.
And then That's All She Wrote. The following week, oh, Jesus, come on, cooperate. Monday, I don't know if Jesse's got anything in the can. Robert will be back with his MMA show Sunday the 2nd. That's also WrestleMania. So I'll be at WrestleMania Live. We're going to have a special show on Tuesday talking about WrestleMania weekend from our friends over at WrestlingToTheMax.net. That'll air Tuesday. Metal Hammer of Doom will cover the new Body Count album, Bloodlust. And while I'm on my cruise, we'll have a show for you. We're going back to the Because They Made Me. Jesse Starcher made me watch a documentary on Netflix called Minimalism, which was fun because he was in the middle of moving at the time when we recorded this, so that was good. It was very relevant. And so go ahead and check that out. You want to go ahead and plug the pay-per-view that week that I won't be watching because I'll be on a cruise?
Yeah, that'll just be April 8th, I think, is UFC 210.
Yep, Cormier versus Fat Johnson 2, Electric Boogaloo.
He's not fat at light heavyweight. He's fat at heavyweight.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
210's. I don't know. I'm not terribly excited about the card. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, I want to thank Robert for coming on the TV party tonight. I guess I apologize on behalf of Blog Talk Radio for the technical difficulties. If you follow us on the Radulich and Broadcasting Facebook page, I happen to mention that this episode was brought to you by technical difficulties. So, haha. All right. Thank you for joining us. If you've made it this long, God bless you. And be well, be safe, and behave.